All right, everyone, thank you so much. I would like to go ahead and call the meeting to order. It is 7 o'clock, August 30th, Monday evening. We have one item to report out of closed session, and I'm going to go ahead and read it. At 7 p.m., the board reconvened into open session, and in the August 30th, 2021 closed session meeting of the governing board, the following action was taken. In closed session, the board directed legal counsel to initiate or intervene in a legal action by a 5 or unanimous vote. The action, the defendants, and the other particulars shall, once formally commenced, be disclosed to any person upon inquiry, unless to do so would jeopardize the district's ability to effective service of process on one or more unserved parties, or that to do so would jeopardize the district's ability to conclude existing settlement negotiations to its advantage. I would like to go ahead and begin or continue our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. And actually, we have a new guest that we're going to introduce in a moment, but I'm going to ask if Ashley could stand and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. She is our new student representative for Lafayette.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ashley, and we'll have a formal introduction in just a moment. But I just want to make sure that we cover our safety protocols. I do very much, we have a full house. I think there are chairs outside if in case anyone needs to sit. Okay, thank you, I got a thumbs up. I just wanted to make sure that everyone is aware, and I do very much appreciate the cooperation of the members present here, that everyone is wearing a mask if you have, and that your mask is over your nose. If there are any concerns or questions, or if someone needs an extra mask, we have masks available. Mark, could you raise your hand? Mark is over there. And if need be, we have face shields as well, and we can provide a face shield for you. So thank you. I still see people settling in, so we'll take it one step at a time. Thank you, everyone, for keeping your masks on. At this point, I'd like to ask our Governing Board Vice President, Dan Jeffries, to introduce our student representative, and we are so happy to have her here with us.
Thank you, Madam President. It is my pleasure to introduce our new Governing Board member, our student representative. Our new student representative is Ashley Lamb, and Ashley is a senior at Lafayette High School. She has been involved with ASB for the past 3 years, and she is an active member in her community. On campus, you can find her leading the Science Olympiad Club, cheering and swimming for the LCHS swim team, and supporting the sports games and performances at LCHS. Outside of school, she chairs assist teams and has been on the executive board of the Sister Cities Youth Group for the past 2 years. So if you could please join me in welcoming our new board member, Ashley Lamb.
Thank you, Mr. Jeffries and Governing Board. I'm excited to be here, and I'm looking forward to a great year. For my school report, I'll start with the elementary schools and end with the middle school and high school. At PCY, the students and staff are excited to be back on campus and are exercising safety protocols. Special classes began last week, so students are back in the art and music classrooms, the computer lab, and the library again. The students are also enjoying the sunshine during their daily PE time with Mr. Levins and are looking forward to 6 back-to-school nights to deliver grade level and school information to the Cougar families. At PCR, the year kicked off before the start of school with a wonderful and highly engaging new family ice cream social on Friday, August 13th, followed by the back-to-school family barbecue at Memorial Park. Starting tomorrow, the Panther families will be invited to the grade-level specific back-to-school nights. Mr. Pack also noted that he was happy to see students and staff back to the routines of coming to school. At LCE, the first 2 weeks of school have been busy and full of joy. After working together to iron out some wrinkles, it was found that there are now double the students that were on campus last year. Everyone is following protocols and trying to keep one another healthy. LCE had a fantastic back-to-school picnic this past Friday and are looking forward to observing Patriot Day on Friday, September 10th, as LCE is part of the Crescenta Valley Patriot Day motorcade route. Students will learn about 9/11 as they commemorate the 20th anniversary of the events of that day. At LCHS 7A, over 95% of 7th graders came to school on August 11th for their web orientation, a 4-hour activity where 8th grade web leaders introduced 7th graders to the ins and outs of campus life. On August 17th and 18th, 7A had a very successful registration and did their vaccine collection on the 26th and 27th. And today, the students gained access to their lockers, and the 7-8 teachers took some time to show students how to open lockers, as no 7-8 student has had to do this since coming to middle school. 3 new staff members were welcomed, as well as a part-time counselor for wellness support. At LCHS, the Spartans are happy to return to school and connect with their friends and teachers. Last week, LCHS staff completed proof of vaccination check-ins, and ASB distributed class shirts. Lockers were open to students last Friday, starting with seniors selecting their lockers and picking up a donut in the morning. This week, block day schedule will be starting, followed by club day on September 9th. In addition, our in-class e-assembly and tailgate are coming up on September 10th. And speaking of football, last Thursday, LC football secured a win, and the band delivered a wonderful halftime show to a packed stadium. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. Ashley knows this, but just to let everyone else know, we welcome and value the input of our student board member. In our normal format, the student board member sits up at this location with us, and we ask our student board member to participate in fully all of our discussions, ask questions, and be a full participant with the board. We also recognize that you have a very busy life. So our usual advice to our student board member is you're welcome to stay as long as you'd like. We would like your input tonight. We have a lengthy agenda, including a lot of discussion of possible COVID measures. We would love to hear a student's perspective, but we also recognize that your time is valuable. So thank you. Thank you for joining us, and stay as long as you can. Thank you.
It is really, truly a pleasure to have a student with us as we're face-to-face again. So let's just keep moving along and stay open. So the next person presenting a report will be our Associate Superintendent of Business and Administrative Services, Mark.
Thank you. Well, just an update, last week we had a really big concrete pour at Palmcrest. We were setting the foundation in place for the first wing of the new building. There were about 40 trucks delivering concrete during the course of the day, and they poured the perimeter foundation. Wednesday, a smaller pour will take place where they'll lay a slab under the building between the perimeter foundation. Coming up in September, they're going to be delivering the modules for that first wing along Jessen. On Friday, September 10th and Saturday the 11th, they'll be delivering the modules for the first floor. And on the 17th and 18th of the following week, they'll be delivering the modules for the second floor. AMS is the building manufacturer based up in Manteca near Stockton. They'll arrive with the buildings on Wednesday the 8th and stage them in the south parking lot of the high school. And the following week, they'll stage the second floor there as well. So parking will be tight in that south lot, but we have some remedies for that coming up this evening. Also, this week on Wednesday night, we're having a PCR neighbors webinar to update the project and go into the details of that delivery schedule that'll be coming up Palm Drive with those big buildings. Parking at the high school has been impacted by the construction of the pool, and it'll be further impacted when they stage those modules there. So what we've done is we've worked together. Mr. Cartnell reached out to the Methodist church across the street, and we're going to be working on a contract with them an MOU, it's on the consent agenda tonight, and it creates an arrangement for 72 spaces in their paved lot. And then actually there's the dirt lot right next to the Berkshire off-ramp. On our big construction days, like when they're delivering these modules or maybe they're doing things at the pool, we'll have access to that as well. So we'll be able to alleviate some of the parking pressures at the high school with that new agreement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. I will go ahead and do my presentation. I usually have very short comments to make because our agendas are always long, but this meeting called for a little longer comments, so bear with me, and I will give my report, and then I'll ask Wendy if you wouldn't mind going last. So on behalf of the governing board, I would like to state that our primary process or purpose is to ensure the safe and academically rigorous operation of the 5 schools within our district. We are experiencing difficult times in our district these past few weeks, seemingly more difficult than what we have seen and heard in the past 18 months. This is not the first nor the last time we will face challenges requiring tough decisions. I was president during a very difficult year when we, as a community, came together to find answers and solutions addressing campus safety concerns in response to the mass shootings at schools across the country. The community at the time loudly demanded answers. It was a difficult time with much debate, frustration, anger, and fear permeating the community. But we literally sat together in this boardroom to come up with solutions. And here we are, 3 years into a safety and security plan that was brought forth, vetted, and implemented, and continues to be adjusted with the productive input and involvement of our community. Our focus here in La Cañada and for the school board, governing board, needs to be and will remain on keeping our schools in La Cañada open in light of the continued COVID-19 surge. This process is onerous given the labor-intensive protocols associated with contact tracing, testing, and quarantining, and all of the resultant health and safety protocols that must be followed. The district and site personnel are working in an all-hands-on-deck model. As you may know, we have had to close several classrooms over the past few days. Let me be clear. The governing board's focus is to direct the superintendent and her staff in keeping our students on campus while maintaining a safe environment for our teachers, staff, administrators, and students through continued communication and safe protocol implementation. The employees of La Cañada Unified School District, represented by our superintendent, Wendy Sinnett, are working so hard on a daily basis to educate and care for our children. We are also committed to maintaining the academic excellence, which we are known for across the state. With all this said, the behavior of some of our community is heartbreaking, discouraging, and so very divisive. Yes, the governing board members are aware of the leaked videos set up with dramatic cuts and background narration. The videos are being posted on social media, seemingly to embarrass the teachers in one of our schools. The videos do not provide the opportunity for clarification and dialogue. This is not representative of the productive involvement and input that helps to address issues, difficult issues. The responsibility of this board is to ensure district policies and procedures are implemented and enforced. We do so as the elected representatives of the community, and we can effectively execute these responsibilities when stakeholders are willing to dialogue and work in concert with us. That formula has provided us with successful resolutions to problems in the past, and I feel strongly that we will continue in that vein, and that we can continue in that vein. Let us sit together and plainly address the anger and frustration, but with the goal of finding solutions, not just assigning blame and volleying accusations. I have discussed with the superintendent the potentiality of site meetings with community members to begin a constructive and civil listening session designed to find solutions. We are open to hearing the differing opinions and criticisms. I humbly ask that the online attacks cease. The barrage of emails about curriculum being dismantled be addressed in meetings where civil discussion and dialogue can take place. Speaking for the governing board, there is a commitment from all of us to hear from you, our constituents, and to come together for the benefit of maintaining the open lines of communication and collaboration on behalf of the health and academic welfare of all of our students. Thank you. Wendy?
With the board's permission, I'd like to just shift a little. And I'd like to say, good evening, everyone. It's so nice to have you here. It's wonderful to be able to be together in person. This past month, I began my 11th year as superintendent in La Cañada Unified School District. Throughout this time, I don't believe I have ever stood up to share with you my superintendent's report. Tonight, I am standing up, literally and figuratively, and I hope that the gravity and importance of this report is heard and heeded by the entire community. My report will begin with some brief updates on the district's response to the COVID-19 pandemic in our reopening of the 2021 school year. Because there is an agenda item on this matter later in the meeting, any public comment should be held until that time. The governing board will engage in public comments regarding COVID-19 health and safety protocols then. The main focus of my report, however, will relate to the anonymous videos posted over the past few weeks that have launched a destructive social media attack upon the La Cañada Unified School District and our community as a whole. The governing board has asked me to be comprehensive and direct in my report on this topic. If you have a comment on this issue, please hold it until tonight's agenda item number 8, the opportunity for the public to address the board on non-agendized items. I would like to remind you that according to the Brown Act, the Board of Education is not allowed to engage in discussion in response to these public comments, and our speakers will be limited to the time identified at the beginning of the public comment period. I know that some of you may feel very passionately about these issues, but the rules will be followed and adhered to. Remember, this is a meeting of the Board of Education in public. It is not the public's meeting. Our in-person school reopening has been hugely successful, but extremely challenging, given the surge in COVID-19 infections as a result of the Delta variant. An agenda item this evening will ask the board to adopt some stricter health protocols as the district leans into week 3 of COVID testing, positive case identification, contact tracing, quarantine notifications, and all of the required adjustments to instructional delivery to support your students who must quarantine. Our goal is to help every student progress through the curriculum. At our elementary schools, where students are not eligible to receive the vaccine, we are reliant on our families to complete the daily health screener, to do this with fidelity and to not send your students to school if they have any COVID symptoms. We will continue to follow strict testing regimens that are robust, so robust that they exhaust our daily testing capacity nearly, help us to identify any positive cases, help us to initiate quarantines, and adhere strictly to indoor masking and recommended outdoor masking, maintaining physical distance, and practicing classroom cohorting. All of these measures in total ensure the health and safety of our students and our staff on our elementary school campuses. At the high school, 712, our best line of defense is the vaccine. Currently, LCHS 712 student body has a 79.23% vaccination rate amongst its students. That breaks down by grade level accordingly. 76% of our 7th graders are vaccinated, 81% of our 8th graders, 78.5% of our 9th graders, 82.27% of our 10th graders, 80.81 of our 11th graders, and in our 12th grade, 81.23%. The existing public health orders allow vaccinated asymptomatic students to continue in person with their instruction and not quarantine. I recognize and I have empathy that there are individual circumstances in every family. But speaking holistically, if you want your student who is over the age of 12 to have protection not only from the virus, but from the negative impacts of a public health ordered quarantine, if they are a close contact, please have them vaccinated. The second part of my report will address the series of anonymously posted videos that have besieged our LCUSD community. To do so, I want to start out on a positive note. La Cañada Flint Ridge is an amazing community. It is essentially Mayberry, nestled in the metropolis of Los Angeles County. It has a small town vibe, and the community prides itself on that. At the heart of this city are its schools. They are the hub for many families' social lives, the center where friendships are formed, where commonalities and bonds are strengthened, and the foundation upon which many of our lives are built. People readily say they come to La Cañada for its schools. We are united by the shared desire to ensure that our children receive a world-class education, that they thrive in their extracurricular pursuits, and they experience the joys of belongingness and personal agency in safe environments on our campuses. What's more, and I say this with a 20-year view as an administrator in this school district, another hallmark of this community is its power to positively unite and solve problems. Its ability to collectively roll up its sleeves, join forces, and turn problems into opportunities. I've seen this again and again over the past 20 years. We've overcome economic collapse, threats to campus safety and security, escalating challenges to student wellness, the introduction of new state standards and curriculum reform, aging buildings and infrastructure, the complexity of social media and its impacts on education, labor challenges, negative press over lawsuits, imposed public work projects, and even a pandemic. You name it, we've dealt with it. But with each and every crisis, we sort it out together. We problem solve, and we find solutions to build a better school district. We do so as neighbors, as school families, as teachers and staff, as a governing board, and as administrators, all working together to unleash the power of many. We are now at another inflection point. LCUSD has identified 3 priorities. One is to deliver a world-class education. Academics are at the core of what we do. 2, to ensure safe and secure campuses that prioritize student wellness. And 3, to foster learning environments that promote inclusion and belongingness while celebrating diversity and providing a multi-tiered system of resources and supports. And it's the latter, number 3, that's come under fire. We have called it our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Initiative, but in these highly politicized and polarized times, some community voices have raised concern that this initiative is intended to indoctrinate youth with liberal ideologies and use the acronym of DEI, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, to teach another acronym, CRT, Critical Race Theory. The district has responded to the concerns. We've worked with stakeholders with wide-ranging political views. We've developed a DEI, a Diversity, Equity, Inclusion plan and guiding documents. This 3-year plan represents all of our students, staff, and families, and uniquely bears the LC stamp. I mean this with all sincerity. Voices of dissent are welcome when they're brought forward by those willing to engage in improving our schools. But what has been happening recently are playbook tactics, a smear campaign anonymously launched and designed to instill divisiveness, fear, derision, and harm. These videos take a mocking tone and use veiled threats. They do not promote any of the interpersonal agency, the skills that we strive to instill in our children. There's no listening, no reasonableness, no problem solving, no collaboration, no arguing the position without attacking the people. Quite simply, what is happening is the antithesis of what we so proudly call the La Cañada difference. That said, there are learnings we can take from even the most counterproductive situation. The videos have demanded that we address certain issues raised. I will not respond charge by charge to an anonymous source. In fact, administrative regulations from board policy set forth that anonymous complaints shall not be entertained. But in the spirit of inclusivity, I will address the most salient complaint. That complaint is about what we teach. LCUSD, like all public school districts in California, is legally required to teach the California state standards. That is what we do, and our teachers do so expertly. Our textbooks and core literature are approved by the governing board. Teachers may determine their curricular presentation methods and instructional material uses, and they may use standards-based ancillary materials. Principals in the Educational Services Department oversee those materials. Parents who have questions or concerns about materials may address those with their teacher. If a concern is not satisfactorily addressed at the teacher level, the principal is the next line of redress. All of this is clearly laid out in board policy, administrative regulations, and our collective bargaining agreement. We solve problems interpersonally, starting at the lowest level. The California state standards provide the framework for what we teach. Teaching outside the California state standards is at one level the gist of the concerns that have been raised. To be responsive to this concern, LCUSD will enhance its professional development, oversight, and collaboration with teachers on the state standards and instructional design and delivery. Right now, and I'm being very straightforward with you, right now our teachers want the protection that collaboration with site and district administrators will provide. But please allow me to emphasize, the state standards legally provide for what is taught, and there can be no dismantling of the curriculum. And as a side note, the standards highlighted in one of the recent videos clearly indicate that many of the difficult topics in history and the essential critical thinking skills required to understand and grapple with those complex issues are provided for within these very state standards. There are other issues I will address in relation to the videos. Teachers are expert in developmentally appropriate education. One video that keeps being replayed suggests that our teachers are planning to indoctrinate elementary students. That is false. What the video actually shows is a group of teachers discussing some significant and complex societal topics amongst themselves, as adults and as professionals. Teachers teach students to think critically, the development of arguments based on source documents, listening skills, and respect. But there is a world of difference between the learning conversations that you'll see in a third grade discussion of Charlotte's Web from what you will see in AP Language and Composition, and then again in conversation between adults. We need to stop and understand the context. Our teachers are well versed in the standards, but the original K-12 California state standards came out in 1997. So many of our teachers were not taught to the standards in their own childhoods, thus their professional desire to instruct their students comprehensively and thoughtfully. Another allegation raised in the video alludes to property values. To that assertion, my reply is that property values may decline from a social media smear campaign against our schools, but they will only increase from our schools being learning environments where all students have a sense of belonging and feel included in their academic, athletic, and extracurricular pursuits. LCUSD's DEI initiative has been wrongly co-opted into the national debate over CRT. That's not who we are, and that's not what we are doing. Our desire to have inclusive classrooms isn't just about race. It's about children with dyslexia, children whose families espouse conservative or liberal ideologies, English language learners, students feeling anxiety or depression from the pandemic, students who are struggling with personal identity and self-expression, children who are being bullied on the playground or via their social media. Our kids are dealing with the most complicated world that has ever existed, and it is our duty as schools and as parents to prepare them to succeed in it. We would be doing them a disservice if we did not explore with them how to navigate diversity in all its forms, diversity that they will experience in the world beyond LC. And it would be a disservice if we did not give them the skills of empathy, compassion, and discernment to be the inclusive, equitable leaders in that world as our next generation of adults. Finally, and I'll end with the notion of compassion, when I watch those videos, I feel personally under attack. So do my teachers, staff, and administrators. I know that there are parents who are worried and have concerns. As primary educators of their children, they only want the absolute best for them, and I applaud that, and I'm with you in that. I think about who V. Lancer is. All I can come up with is Vigilante Knight, and that's just to give you some personal insights into my worried mind at 3 a.m. But if V. Lancer is a member of our community, then it is my charge as superintendent to listen and to do better. We can always improve, and if there are concerns out there, then they need to be heard. Discussion and explanation need to be thoughtfully identified and honestly offered. And where there are identified areas for growth, transparent action plans, ideally action plans that are collaboratively designed, need to be strategized and implemented. As such, I will be asking parents, hopefully many of you, to work alongside with me, to set up coffees where I, along with board members, will host small group meetings. We will engage in the process I just described. Together, I am confident we will be able to solve problems, redirect this crisis, learn from one another, and become stronger for it. But we need to do so in the manner that LCUSD, our community, the manner that we are known for, and that is in person, in partnership, and in the best interest of our students, teachers, staff, families, and our community as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. I'd like to go on to item number 7 on the agenda, which is a review of the agenda. Is anyone on the dais need to, are we okay?
Yes, I was
Josh?
hoping we could pull out item 12N from the consent agenda.
12N, as in the agreement for parking with La Cañada Unified Methodist Church?
Yes.
Okay,
I would second that motion.
perfect, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, let's pull that out and put it under first read items as 11G. Okay. Thank you, Josh. Anything else? Okay. We've come to the point where we have proposed, number 8 is the opportunity for the public to address the board on non-agendized items. We have listed on the agenda that's been live since Friday how and the processes and procedures that the public can submit comments. We also have many people here that want to speak. I have a list of 24 members here. Nairi, is there any more? 6 more, so we have a Oh, two more, okay. So we have a total of 26 members that want to speak. Our practice has been that each person has the opportunity to speak for 3 minutes. I would ask that you stay very, very close. I actually would like to go to 2 minutes just so we can keep moving and move along. If you need to finish your statement, not a problem. You've seen us do this in the past. Nairi, I will check in with you. I have my phone as well, and we'll just keep checking with each other. But I do have a list of members who have signed up in order, and I would like to go in order of who's signed up. However, if, with all of your permission, I know that there are several students here, and I believe the students want to speak. Is that true? If I would like to ask the students to come up and speak first so that you may choose to go and finish any assignments, anything else you have to do, if everyone's all right with that. So what I will ask the students to do, if you wouldn't mind standing up and coming up to the side here, if you can socially distance as best as possible. And then as you come up to the microphone, please state your name, and if you are comfortable, the grade that you are in, and then I will check you off. And once the students have spoken, if they choose to stay, terrific. If they choose to go, fine. We thank you for your participation, as your voice is extremely important. Thank you, and let's get going. I'm sorry, Josh, what were you saying, the podium? The podium we can turn, actually, what's the camera angle like? Because we want to make sure the camera can capture our speakers. Yeah, I mean, they're supposed to see you. Okay. Let's turn the podium a little bit. Thank you.
I actually prepared for 3 minutes, but should I cut it down to 2?
You go right ahead.
Awesome, thank you so much.
We'll start with your name.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Nadia Chung. I'm currently a senior at La Cañada High School, and I was a student at La Cañada Elementary from kindergarten all the way through 6th grade. Now, I understand that some parents have been expressing concern over a video from the LCE Teacher-Attended Book Club, but I'm here to offer a student perspective on all of this controversy and these criticisms. First of all, I'm astonished that parents would not only violate teachers' private discussions, but then go on to publicly antagonize them under anonymous profiles and video uploading services. I've heard the word inappropriate be thrown around in reference to the book club, but if there is any inappropriate behavior, it's coming from our community members that are behaving like bullies, gossiping and slandering teachers. As an incoming senior now, I can confidently attest to the teachings and education that I've received. I've never felt pressured by a teacher to adopt any sort of political belief. And I am endlessly grateful for the education that I have received, one that has provided me with tools with which I can make my own informed decisions. I also stand with the teachers when they express concern that vital aspects of history are still withheld from our textbooks and kept out of classroom discussions. This absolutely needs to change. Furthermore, over a course of educating myself both inside and outside of the classroom, I've learned how important it is to utilize precise definitions to combat obfuscation through the use of political buzzwords. So multiple parents have expressed concern about possible indoctrination occurring, but let's just be clear. Verbatim, indoctrination is defined as the process of teaching a person or group to accept a set of beliefs uncritically. But if there's been anything made clear through those videos and through our teachers' advocacy, it has been that they want students to have a complex understanding of US history, to critically analyze things. If we call it indoctrination every time schools are teaching the aspects of American history that we aren't proud of, we are committing a massive disservice to all students. It is a dangerous thing to manipulate history. This is absolutely true. Let's realize, however, that limiting a student's education by omitting any information that stands against our romanticized view of American history is also manipulation. Worse yet, it is a frightening picture of our community to see that a recording of a personal and vulnerable discussion has been circulated without permission and has created an environment where teachers are unable to comfortably and safely foster their own educational discourse. Finally, I'm not up here speaking exclusively from my personal experience, but rather I'm speaking on behalf of dozens of students who have had their education nurtured through LCE, PCY, PCR, and LCHS. The consensus is absolutely clear. We support the teacher's right to have conversations. We appreciate and stand with the education we've received, and we will continue to advocate for an education that is multidimensional and inspired by discussions that are continuously adapting, because history and education are not stagnant. Thank you so much for all your time.
Nadia, thank you so much. And again, with the permission of all present here, we truly appreciate student feedback. And so please take the 3 minutes as students. We don't get to hear from students at every single meeting.
Hello, my name is Jessica Mason. I'm a junior at LCHS, and I have been in the La Cañada School District since I was in kindergarten. I'm here to share my thoughts about DEI from a student perspective. I firmly believe that DEI is a necessity for the well-being of La Cañada students. I have seen and heard absolutely disgusting, racist, homophobic, and generally prejudiced things on campus throughout my years in both elementary school and high school. When slurs are being thrown around on campus with seemingly no repercussions, you know there must be something wrong. Neither teachers nor students know how to properly react in response to a situation like this. Even though the school handbook may say no swearing or slurs, there is still a sense of uncertainty and fear regarding how to respond to that kind of behavior. If I am this frustrated and disgusted by the language and insensitivity I witness at school, I can't even imagine how the students who are the targets of this behavior feel. Students of color, disabled students, and LGBT students have to deal with the world's prejudice from the moment they are born, and it's disheartening that they can't even escape it at school. The DEI initiative is a catalyst for change on campus and will educate teachers and students on how to handle these difficult issues. As a student, I can tell you with certainty that we know what is happening in the world, good and bad, and we hear what is being said on campus. A DEI initiative in whole will not brainwash us, and it is not indoctrination. DEI will teach empathy, respect, kindness, and equality. These are the most important traits of being human. These qualities build good, smart, kind human beings. I want La Cañada schools to be filled with good, smart, and kind students. It all boils down to respect. As a student, I want to see positive change on campus, and I want to see more respect. I believe that DEI is a large step in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Nadia and Jessica. Are there any other students who would like to speak at this point? Thank you again for the participation of the students and those that are here. Much appreciated. Always appreciate having feedback. No? Okay. So I'll go down the list of speakers that I have. And again, I would ask as adults to limit your comments to 2 minutes. And we'll get started with Belinda Randolph. Belinda, I'm so sorry. Can I have you move closer to the microphone? Thank you so much.
As I stand in this room, there are 3 people I have known for more than 15 years. One was my babysitter, but the next 2 are people that were not necessarily such close friends. One was Mandy Redfern, who's sitting right in front of me here, and the other was Wendy Sinnette. Those 2 people were sitting in an office with me, maybe 50 feet in that direction, and it was confrontational. It was intense, and I was angry, and I did not consider them in agreement with me at the time. I look at this board, and I am pretty sure I've had a serious disagreement with each and every one of you, maybe minus one. I look over here at that table, and I've had a disagreement with absolutely every single person there. But let me tell you, I love this district, and I respect Mandy and the teachers at LCE. I listened to their conversation. I did feel a little guilty about it, but I listened, and I saw nothing wrong with it. And I respect Wendy, and I respect how she handles it, and I respect the people that are willing to come and speak with their face instead of being an anonymous. And I just want to tell every teacher who's in this room that I've never met before, and every administrator, that I support you.
Thank you, Melinda. You read my mind, Nairi. Thank you. Next on the list is Jack Shadell. And again, thank you, everyone, for keeping your comments to as close to 2 minutes as possible. And after Jack, we have Leah Walker. Jack, is it possible to keep the mask on while you speak, please?
I think I'm pretty far away from everybody.
I think it's just for protocol sense.
Okay.
If you don't mind putting the mask back on,
Right.
I would much appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you so much,
All right.
Jack.
So today I'm speaking on a topic that should have been agendized as promised at the last board meeting. The topic of the teaching of critical race theory under the guise of DEI. Regardless of what people think of DEI, we still don't know what the community thinks of it because the district has refused so far to conduct an impartial survey of the community. One thing we've been assured is that DEI, with the locking out a stamp, means that CRT will not be taught in our schools. I served on the DEI committee this year, specifically on the Curriculum and Instruction Subcommittee. With me on that committee was LCE Principal Emily Blaney. She was there when LCHS Principal Jim Cartnell clearly and appropriately expressed, "We're not teaching 1619 project." On these bases, I stood up at a board meeting on April 27th and assured the community that the board was not going to implement critical race theory. I was concerned, however, because there was a Facebook post on a local page from an LCE teacher, which had said, quote, "Many of us have been working vertically to create and gather materials that align to the district's very important adoption of DEI. I pointed this out at the board meeting and said it was premature for teachers to be doing this before the district adopted anything. The next day, the teacher posted on the same page, "As a veteran teacher, working vertically to support DEI curriculum is not premature, it is long overdue." I brought this to Principal Blaney's attention and to Superintendent Sinnett's attention. Principal Blaney responded that she trusts the teachers to supplement their textbooks with resources if they support the standards. However, there had been no DEI standards adopted as of that time. Now we come to find out it was not just one teacher or a few teachers following their own ideas about what to teach, but there's been documentary and video evidence that paid training time was devoted to the study of such books as White Fragility and Seeing White, which are all about reinforcing the ideas of critical race theory. There were even discussions of, quote, going around the standards, numerous attacks in these videos on whiteness, white men, and assertions that the curriculum was written by people in power to reinforce their power.
If I could ask you to wrap it up, because we've gone over the 2 minutes.
Okay. Well, it said 3.
I understand, but we do
Okay.
have the right to go if there's
Okay.
more than...
I'll finish. I haven't
I
spoken in a meeting in a long
appreciate it.
time.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm not finished. So I want to be clear, because I'm the son of 2 teachers, the husband of a teacher, the brother of a teacher, soon to be the father of a teacher. This is not criticism of teachers. But we have to keep in mind why schools exist. It's to teach children, to serve children, not to provide jobs, not to provide playgrounds for teachers to employ radical new ideologies and try to implement them on our students, try to impose them on our students. We, the parents, are in charge. So I don't think the board is doing enough to protect our students from CRT. Since April, I've been begging you to look into the likelihood that some teachers were not respecting the district's process of evaluating what kind of DEI program to implement. So far, my pleas have fallen on deaf ears. Now you have incontrovertible proof. You've seen it. The teachers have been using resources that clearly come from a CRT perspective and clearly have been conspiring on how to implement this into the classroom. So I'll conclude with 3 demands. 1 should be a full and transparent investigation into the use of resources for teaching that are unapproved and/or contrary to the district's DEI policies. including teaching CRT and failing to include core values as a key component of diversity.
Jack, you've gone over 3 minutes at this point.
Secondly, so I just wanted an agenda item for the next board meeting so you can discuss it fully.
Okay.
And finally, you should conduct a survey of the entire community to see what people's thoughts really are.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Jack. And again, thank you, Jack. And we'll go on to Leo Walker, please. And after Mr. Walker, I have Jeff Abraham. I'll have you come up closer to the podium, and we can continue the public comments as quickly as possible. Again, I do ask that we keep to 2 minutes.
My name is Leo Walker. I commend the teachers for being willing to take the time out personally to intellectually deal more deeply with the issues which they are teaching. However, the purpose of education is to induct the next generation into the parent culture and prepare them to become functional, contributing adults in society. Here, that means inculcating American culture and preparation for the responsibilities of American citizenship. I can well understand some of the teachers' dismay at having been discovered subverting that purpose. It is well, however, that this subversion has been discovered. In order to support traditional American culture, I would like to present the board with a printout of Hillsdale's 1776 project, which should be able to provide ample ancillary materials to these teachers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. If I could have Jeff Abraham here, and hold on 1 second, Mr. Abraham. You have some items for us? Can I ask if we could give it to Nairi? Thank you so much, Nairi. And Mr. Abraham, did you need the podium wiped before you used it?
1776 curriculum.
Thank you so much, sir. Can we wipe?
No, I
Okay, let's
absolutely
keep
do
going.
not need the podium wiped down.
Thank you so
All right.
much. We'll go ahead and get
All right.
started.
I'm the parent of 3 children at Palmcrest Elementary. While listening to the Zoom calls that were leaked proves that these several teachers, if not most, have an agenda that they plan on pushing early and often in our children's childhood, in our children's education. If you don't believe that as administrators, then you are either not aware of what your teachers are doing, or you are simply gaslighting us. Either way, it's an issue and it needs to be addressed right now. One of the teachers said extremely sarcastically, "We were raised to believe that America's number one and America is the best." All the while, every other teacher was nodding their heads. Let me tell you something. America is the best. Like every other nation, there are... Like every other nation, there are parts of our history that we are now proud of. But with all due respect to our neighbors all around the world, there's a reason why the last 250 years, everybody has wanted to move to this country and not the other way around. Nobody in this country is moving due to a lack of freedom or because they're not getting an opportunity in this country that they deserve based on their skin color. It saddens me to realize that as a nation, we have become such a spoiled people that we don't appreciate just how blessed we are to call this nation our home. Just look at what's going on in Afghanistan, and that is made abundantly clear. There are billions of people around the world who would love nothing more than to trade places with any one of us in this room. My grandfather came to this country with his father 100 years ago to escape life in the Middle East. He was so proud to call himself an American because he could provide for his family with one condition, him working hard. That was the only thing that stood in his way, and he provided for his family and for generations to come. My children have a black uncle. They have never once talked or asked questions about his skin color. My son has several Asian friends. He would describe them as his buddies who he plays tag with and baseball and football with. These kids do not see color, and this garbage agenda will take away their innocence. Slavery has been a stain not only on this country but on the entire world for all of mankind, but nobody in this community, the state, or even this country today is to be blamed for what happened long ago. And to say that a child is an oppressor or oppressed based on their skin color is racism. Lastly, outside of Abraham Lincoln, George Washington is my favorite president, not because he owned slaves, but because he led an army of farmers and liberated a nation under a tyrannical king's rule halfway across the world. When our children learn of George Washington, they should learn that he owned slaves, but they should also learn that he cared for his slaves extremely well, taught them how to read and write, and freed them as part of his will. Nobody is perfect, but he is to be celebrated for being being the father of this great nation. We don't celebrate Kobe Bryant because he committed adultery. We celebrate him because of his athletic ability. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Abraham. Nicole, if I could have Nicole. Thank you, everyone. Next is Nicole Abraham. Thank you so much.
Thank you. How do I start this thing? Let's see. I will take the full 3 minutes. Last year was our first year at Palm Crest, and we've been so pleased with our children's experiences. Mr. Pack has been an incredible, steadfast leader, and we want to thank all of our teachers' kids. They have been wonderful, and we want to thank them for the wonderful jobs they're doing. That being said, the recent controversy surrounding LCE is very concerning with regard to the intentions of the teachers there. The DEI initiative has been controversial in our community primarily because parents continue to feel it has not been unequivocally defined, and we're concerned that with it, critical race theory is going to leak into our classrooms. The board has continued to reassure parents that this will not be the case, but the rumblings out of LCE clearly suggest otherwise. La Cañada schools have always been known for their academic excellence, and the reason we as parents entrust our most precious treasures to you 7 hours a day is so you can teach them the fundamentals: reading, writing, math, science, and history. Those are our expectations, that our children are taught how to think, not what to think. The classroom is not a platform to impart personal truths, and our educators should in no way impose their individual ideologies, politics, and versions of morality. The beauty of this wonderful country is that we are incredibly diverse, and we come from different places. We're privileged to have the freedom of thought, freedom of religion, freedom to live our lives and raise our families in the best way we know how. This diversity optimizes the highest level of education and excellence and creates an atmosphere that demands critical thinking, the very thing that our teachers should be striving for. We will lose this diversity if our children are subjected to a uniform and subjective version of morality, virtue, and justice. It has always been the job of the parents to teach the children these values. It is counterproductive and frankly very arrogant to think that teachers would take charge of this critical responsibility. If an educator is concerned about teaching something in the classroom they may be sensitive, inappropriate, or that might invite backlash, then it shouldn't be taught. Our educators have no right to usurp the dinner table conversations that should be reserved for the home. It is not their role to be initiating these conversations with our children and driving the narrative. These topics should be left for us to discuss with our children on our terms, in our timing, and in the manner that we see fit. These are our children, and they've been given to us so we can raise them. Our teachers need to stick to teaching academics and reinforcing the universally accepted values of respect, kindness, and dignity. If we teach our kids to respect and be kind to every person they encounter, this would be the surest way to correct all DEI is attempting to rectify. On the other hand, these leaked videos do the exact opposite. The DEI initiative as exposed by the leaked videos do the exact opposite. The emphasis and bitterness with which race, gender, equity, white privilege, etc. were discussed is toxic and will only further create the divisions we all clearly want to heal. You have repeatedly said DEI is not critical race theory. If that's the case, it should be the easiest option for you to settle the waters, set the guardrails in place, and make a motion now to ban critical race theory. There's no reason you don't ban it. Just ban it.
Thank you so much.
Ban it from our classrooms.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ms. Abraham. Just for clarity's sake, as 3 people have mentioned already, this is not an agenda item. It does not mean it's not going to be, but again, the focus is primarily at this point, so early in the year, to maintain and to keep our schools open and to make sure that the protocols are in place to keep our schools open. I would like to go to Ashley Grace, and after Ashley, I have Sugi Sorensen.
Good evening. I'd like to start by saying that the simple fact that we are all here on a Monday night, when we could be at home watching Bachelor in Paradise, means that we all have something pretty remarkable in common. We care about our children, and we care about their education, and that is an amazing piece of common ground. This small town is falling victim to the political circus of the country at large, which has been literally created to divide and then maintain that division. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that there aren't real issues at stake here that deserve some pretty serious debate. But as a national collegiate debate champion, allow me to offer you a tip. Barely any of you would have made it past the first round of a college debate tournament because in order to debate effectively, you have to listen. Okay, I'm going to say something shocking here as someone who self-admittedly stands on one side of the aisle and has opinions on matters of education policy and curriculum. But it is okay to have differing opinions. It is okay to have differing politics. Yes. Okay, it's actually exciting. So we are a diverse community. That's great. We can be divided as to how we want our children to be educated on racism. We are. We can disagree about how best to handle a global pandemic. We clearly do. But division is supposed to be the starting point. If you actually care to get anything done. If you are here because you want to affect any actual change, you have to eventually stop assuming the worst of each other and stop projecting that your opponents are idiots because they don't agree with you, and start actually listening. Start talking vulnerably about your fears, because that is what is at the bottom of all of this. We are all people, good people, just fearful about different things. I have a degree in child development, and I'm currently getting my master's in social work, and I can tell you from experience that one of the best things that you can do for your children is model healthy conflict management and work alongside other people who are different than you. It teaches your children to prioritize acceptance, compromise, self-growth, respect. After all, isn't that why we're all here? I mean, concerns about the education of our children? If that's true, please don't forget that the greatest educator of your child is yourself. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. After Mr. Sorensen, I have Matt Burnett.
I'm a parent in the district, and I was selected to the DEI Oversight Committee, though our committee hasn't met yet. At the last board meeting, several community members raised concerns over the leaked video issues, which you made prepared statements about earlier. I believe there were legitimate concerns raised both in the video as well as by teachers and community members who were supportive of the teachers and alleged that teacher and staff privacy were violated. Those concerns should be heard, investigated, and discussed. Both Board President Puglia and Superintendent Sinet said that you could not answer the questions that were being asked at the last meeting because the teacher videos weren't an agendized item. In fact, both of you asked that we recommend items to be put on the agenda. It is my understanding that several parents asked that that be added to the agenda. Instead of complying with that request, you refused it and you read prepared statements. I can only conclude that until tonight, you were avoiding the issues raised by the videos. A very reasonable question was asked multiple times last meeting, and you steadfastly refused to answer it, hiding behind the procedural technicality that you couldn't answer it because it wasn't on the agenda. As a member of the DEI Oversight Committee, I feel derelict in my responsibility to the community to provide oversight. It would appear from the videos that little to no oversight of the district's DEI program is going on by anyone. Teachers are holding book clubs and professional development meetings, strategizing about how to circumvent regulations prohibiting straying from teaching the standards. There's talk of dismantling the curriculum. Staff appears to be circumventing rules on how supplemental instructional materials are introduced into the classroom. You asked for positive civil discourse forward. I've recommended in previous meetings that at the very least, you should remind teachers and staff of their obligation to follow existing regulations, which include discussion of controversial issues. They must remain politically neutral. Teachers cannot unilaterally introduce outside curricula into the classroom without oversight and approval. Yet you have been non-responsive on these very modest recommendations. Your unwillingness to enforce your own rules and provide oversight of your own initiative has led to this current mess. Please consider providing oversight. I appreciate what you said, Wendy, as far as having civil dialogue. That's the first positive affirmative statement I've heard toward having and asking and investigating what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sanchez. Mr. Burnett, and just to clarify, the item may not be on the agenda. Again, the priority is to ensure that the protocols to keep our schools open is number one. It does not mean we cannot do anything else, but we can first look at reopening, look at DEI, look at the issues that come up, and we will continue to do so. No one is trying to hide behind anyone, and I'm speaking on behalf of the governing board here. Mr. Burnett, thank you.
Thank you. With all due respect to the collegiate debate champion, we're not here trying to win a certificate trophy. The stakes are a lot higher than that. We're talking about fighting against the abuse of our children. So I was sitting here listening to the commentary of Ms. Puglia, Wendy Sinnett, about the video. I couldn't help but be reminded of an old saying, "Don't piss on me and tell me it's rain." That was utterly ridiculous. Nowhere has a denouncement of those videos been made by anyone on this board, any teacher. Instead, all we've got is excuses that they were somehow private, taken out of context. Are you kidding me? Those videos weren't, nobody dubbed the voices on those videos. They weren't edited. They're not even private. Did anybody consider the fact that they were clearly filmed on school grounds, or at least from Wendy's office? Did anybody look in to see if public funds were used to pay for the Zoom account that hosted those videos? Did you guys take any responsibility or initiative to investigate any of it? No attempt by this board has been made to investigate that. Why? The big lie here, ladies and gentlemen, is that while the board will continue to hide by their singular defense that the DEI initiative has somehow been stripped of CRT, it's bullcrap. And they know damn well that nothing in the directive prevents any teacher from going full tilt on pushing the CRT or any of their other unhinged, hateful, divisive ideology on our children behind the closed doors of their classrooms. What those videos make painfully clear is that's exactly what these teachers plan on doing. Does teachers feel under assault? Wendy, you feel somehow under assault? What about our flipping kids? Last meeting, I asked each member of the board a simple question, a question everyone refused to answer. And you hide behind some procedural technicality that you weren't required to answer. You still have free will last time I checked. There's a simple question. Given the district's position that CRT will not be an adopted part of the standards-based instruction, will you pledge to denounce any support for curriculum that attaches race-based attributes to individuals or classes of people? And will you support disciplinary action against any teacher that does? Each one of you refused to answer the question. You refused to put the matter on the agenda today. Your continued obstruction on this matter is shameful. It speaks to something much more problematic than incompetence. It suggests of deceit, unethical dealings, and betrayal of the public trust, and we will continue to escalate this. Today I submitted a public records request, I'll leave you a copy of it, for all the email correspondence from the accounts of members of this board, as well as Wendy Sinnett and Emily Blaney. If not met with prompt attention to this matter, we will bring suit against the district, and I should caution each of you, as with the advice of your own legal counsel, to not treat such a request lightly, as the willful destruction of such records by public officers is subject up to 1 year imprisonment. Sunlight
Mr.
truly is
Burnett,
the best.
you're at 3.5 minutes right now, so I would
Well, that's
ask you to
okay.
wrap
You went
up.
longer. The students went longer. I'm actually a taxpayer in this
I
town too,
understand,
so you give me
Mr.
10 more
Please
seconds.
wrap it up. Thank you.
You can try to keep the curtains closed on this district as long as you want. Sunlight is the best disinfectant. We'll rip the roof off this place if we have to.
Thank you, Mr. Burnett. Melissa Mason is next. Melissa, if I could have, thank you everyone. We want to make sure and keep moving forward. Hold on one second. Okay. Can you, hold on just a second. Thank you so much. I'm going to have you state your name and then we'll go from there. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Audrey Cohen. You might know my mom, Paris Cohen. She was president of the LCFEF board a couple years back. Now, shortly after my friend and classmate Jessica Mason spoke, I heard a parent behind me say something along the lines of, "We want to hear another side of students." And I'm here to offer another side, though that might not be the side you think. I'd like to talk from personal experience, what I've experienced the past 13 years being in this district. I'm a senior currently at LCHS. At the ripe age of 11, I was called a terrorist by a classmate. Before then and after then, I've been called worse due to my sexuality, my ethnicity, even my religion. I'm half Ashkenazi and half Middle Eastern. I have nothing but love for this district, but I believe with my entire heart that if DEI is brought up when kids like me and kids like my classmates are in elementary school, we can eliminate some of this hate just by educating people. It starts early. Yes, even elementary school, even at LCE or PCY where I went to school. It starts early so that even the youngest kids of color, such as myself and such as many of my classmates, can feel represented and can learn that there's nothing wrong with being a bit different than the majority of people in La Cañada. Kids can be the oppressors, and it's because they learn from the people around them. Kids can be the oppressors and the oppressed. DEI will eliminate some of that if these kids learn earlier. It's my hope that another kid doesn't have to go through what I did growing up when I was not even a teenager yet. DEI is America because America is diverse. Even La Cañada is diverse. DEI is important, and I believe with my entire being that it should be taught to the youngest kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Audrey. Melissa Mason, and then after Melissa Mason, I have Kelly Davis. Unless there's another student that needs to speak. If a student does need to speak, just stand up and we'll put you in the mix. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Melissa Mason. I've lived in La Cañada for 19 years, and I've had children in the Unified School District since 2006. I've volunteered extensively in our schools and in the community over the past 15 years, and I feel like I can safely say that I have a pretty good understanding of this community. Over the past months, I have been deeply saddened by the public display of unkind and disrespectful behavior directed at La Cañada Unified employees and school board members by some of my fellow LCUSD parents. Anyone looking in at our community might wonder if this behavior represents who we are. I would like to respond with a resounding no. You know who we are? Let me tell you. We are hundreds of families, enough to fill a 2-page spread in our local paper a few months ago, who give their hard-earned money to our educational foundation every year, and who raised over $2 million last year for our schools in the middle of a pandemic. We are a silent majority of families who have quietly been going through our days, handling our business, and trusting our kids' safety, education, and personal growth to the hardworking professionals of the La Cañada Unified School District. I trust my school district and I trust my school board. That trust has been built through years of talking with them and working with them. Work that has been grounded in the values of respect, transparency, competence, inclusion, and compassion. To my fellow parents, remember that the people sitting in front of us, along with the hundreds of others who work for the district, are making their way through these unprecedented times right along with us. They too are stressed, stretched, and emotionally frayed. And yet, they have steered our school district consistently and conscientiously with incredible care and thoughtfulness through this time of profound uncertainty and upheaval. The work they have done to get us to where we are today is nothing short of miraculous, in my opinion.
Melissa, I'm sorry, I'm going to have you just wrap up.
Keep doing what you're doing. Know that we are here to support and partner with you as we navigate the months and years ahead. And I thank you all so very much.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Melissa. Kelly is next. Thank you, Kelly Davis. And then after Kelly, I have Tracy Nelson on the list.
Hi, good evening. My name's Kelly Davis. I'm parent to 3 children who've attended La Cañada schools since 2005. My youngest is currently a sophomore at LCHS. The school board, administration, teachers, Principal Cardinal, and especially Superintendent Sinnett have earned my trust and admiration over the past 16 years. As in any good partnership, they listen, they consider the facts, and they do what's best for our children. While we all mostly moved here for the schools, I encourage those who have issues to try and work with our district to improve them. But I really want to note some recent achievements just from this past year. When the country shut down on Friday, March 13th, 2020, the district was able to pivot and get classes online for our students by the following Tuesday, March 17th. Last November, our district was the first in LA County to receive permission from LA County Public Health to open our elementary schools. La Cañada High School was recognized as a 2021 California Distinguished School by the California Department of Education. We're ranked 225th nationally out of nearly 18,000 nationally ranked high schools. 95% of our 2021 class is going to college this fall. In February, we were featured on the NBC Nightly News for a groundbreaking initiative to do a late morning start, which recognized the need for students to get more sleep. And other high schools from around the state are regularly touring LCHS to learn about our unique wellness center. So to my fellow parents, I would say, we've got it pretty good here. There's always room to improve, and we don't all have the same viewpoints. But please model good behavior for our children tonight. And remember that these extraordinary administrators and our volunteer school board are all human too. So to Wendy and the board, thank you for continuing to give such outstanding effort on behalf of our children.
Thank you. Tracy Nelson. After Tracy, I have Nirosha Rawan.
My name is Tracy Nelson, and I'm here to say thank you to the board members and to Wendy. Thank you for guiding and keeping us safe, our community, our schools, and most importantly, our children. These past 18 months have been incredibly challenging, but I have been comforted knowing that our science-based and expert-driven facts are what are informing your difficult decisions about COVID safety protocols. Thank you for working so hard at putting together an extremely well thought out and sensitive plan of action that is flexible when it needs to be based on the evolving scientific data and guidelines from the Department of Public Health and the CDC. Thank you for using the trust that I, as a parent and as a community member, have placed in you to make sure my children are safe, healthy, and happy during these difficult times. I am certain it is difficult to take into account all the differing views of the parents in our district and to find a well-informed solution, but I think you have done an outstanding job doing that. Thank you for your strong leadership as you take decisive steps that are based in science and at times are unpopular. It takes incredible strength and moral fortitude to make those hard choices and to deal with the ensuing criticism. I know we all want what is best for our kids, so I'm grateful that we have leaders who are willing to ask tough questions and make even tougher decisions. Finally, thank you for continuing to encourage me to believe in the goodness of people and the resilience of this community. I am confident that you will continue to honor the trust we've placed in you by thinking critically, following the science, listening to the experts, and asking the tough questions. I am confident that we are all in excellent hands, and you have my support 100%. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Patrick. Nirosha is next. After Nirosha, I have Joshua Gottheim. Thank you.
Hello. I'm a parent of kids at LCE and LCHS 7A. I'm very thankful for all the hard work and dedication of our school board, our superintendent, our teachers, and our staff. I know many of you are juggling many hats and working long hours, and I'm immensely grateful to you for everything you're doing for our students. Last week, I received an unsolicited email sent anonymously containing links to the videos that's been discussed today. The videos were edited with voiceovers and contained taunting and threatening messages to our district and our teachers. While I support the right to disagree and hold our institutions accountable, I believe this email and these videos cross a line. They are unacceptable and pose a threat to our schools and our community. There are plenty of legal, ethical, and decent ways to express disagreement. There's no need for threats, leaked videos, and spam emails. To put the images of our staff and teachers on public websites without their permission in a manner designed to create outrage is not acceptable. We are an educational community. Many of us are parents. Our kids are watching us. They learn by our actions and by our behavior. Do we want to teach our kids to post anonymous videos of people they don't agree with? Do we want to teach our kids to issue threats when their demands are not met? We are a small town. Whether we like each other or not, we are bound by our geographic proximity. The people you're screaming at might be the same ones you will depend on in the case of a natural disaster, like a fire. The teachers you're taunting may be the ones who will be protecting your kids if there is an intruder on campus or a bear. Please, let's be kind, let's be civil, let's treat each other with respect.
Thank you. So Mr. Gottheim is up, and after Mr. Gottheim, I have Octavia Fuss. Thank you.
Thank you. My three kids have had some of the teachers at LCE, and I'm for the most part grateful for their dedicated work. I welcome political debate. I'm happy to coexist in this community with its diverse spectrum of political opinion. But teachers should stick to the approved curriculum and avoid indoctrination. With all due respect, my biggest beef is with Mrs. Blaney, who under the guise of a book club imposed on her subordinates a divisive, racialized, and ultimately Marxist worldview. Marxism teaches that those who have because they've taken from those who have not. It claims the central premise of our economic system is exploitation. As the philosopher Stephen Blackwood states, quote, Marx outlines very clearly this dynamic of focusing all the force of one part of society against another. It leads to a war of all against all, and it leads to identity politics warfare, unquote. CRT authors like D'Angelo and Kendi claim that the white oppressor class is keeping down people of color. Traditional institutions should be dismantled in order to redistribute wealth, power, and privilege. Translated to the classroom, CRT teaches white students to acknowledge their status as members of the immoral oppressor class. And it stokes a grievance mentality in students of color who are told that the deck is stacked against them because of the inherent disdain that society has for them. This was not a private book club. When the boss invites her subordinates to a professional development meeting on DEI, that's not just friends getting together for a glass of Pinot Grigio and Pulp Fiction. The message to employees was clear. You are either with us or you are on the way out. No counterpoint was provided by Tom Sowell or other scholars. Only a single point of view was expressed, that the curriculum needs to be changed in a CRT direction, using whatever woke instructional materials can be pulled off the internet, so that the teachers can promote their social justice agenda. I look forward to further discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Galkan. Wendy? Excuse me, hold on 1 second, I'll talk. Wendy, can we clarify, just to make sure, and I wanted just to clarify, that there was no subordination. I just want to be clear, just for clarifying purposes. I know Emily is here, but as the superintendent, this was not a mandate by anyone, if I understand it correctly, that Ms. Blaney did not mandate that her staff participate?
No, there was no subordination. It was invitational and voluntary.
Okay, thank you so much. And again, just for clarity and not trying to hide behind any procedural items, again, we will address these issues, but we need to make sure that we take one at a time. One, most important, being safety protocols and keeping the schools open for our kids. It does not mean that we are not intending to address this issue as an agenda item. Octavia, thank you.
Good evening, and first I'd like to say thank you to the entire board. You've worked tirelessly, you fielded our emails, our concerns, our complaints, even our anger. Thank you. Your time is appreciated and we recognize that. I'd like to first say that, well, I did not receive the emails. My husband did. And I also want to reassure the community that my 3 sons have graduated from LCE, and I assure you they have not been indoctrinated. In fact, they challenge me on a weekly basis, on a daily basis. I see things differently, and they challenge me. So I promise you, LCE, thank you. You've done an excellent job at building critical thinkers and free thinking. And I appreciate that, even if there is dissent in the House. More seriously, those videos are shameful. The community members who are supporting those videos are shameful. This is a disgrace to the community, and you should be ashamed.
Hold on, everyone. Allow Ms. Thess to continue. Thank you.
This has been a very difficult year for everybody. The civil discourse has gone out the window. It's time to pull it together, and it's time to get a check on reality. What you think is happening is not happening in La Cañada. Get a grip. Shameful. And nobody wants to say that. The people in this room are responsible for this video. Absolutely disgraceful. You're welcome.
Hold on, everyone, please.
That's okay. 5 seconds. Thank you to our leadership. Thank you for standing up and being bold. Enough is enough.
Thank you, Ms. Thess. I have Stacy. Again, this is an opportunity for the public to address their opinions. There are varied opinions, and we will hear all of them. Thank you. I have Stacy Craig next, and Matt Weber after Stacy. Thank you so much.
Hi, quick thank you to the board members. I know you guys are working on a multitude of very complex issues, and this can be a thankless job. So thank you for what you're doing. It's very important. It's becoming evident that there are a lot of issues causing a lot of tension in the community, but what I find most upsetting is the treatment of the teachers. Our teachers are our most valuable resource in this community, and they care so much about our kids, and we need to remember that and treat the teachers with kindness and respect. So teachers, to any teachers present, I want to say thank you for all that you do. We see you, we support you, and we're so grateful for you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Weber. And after Mr. Weber, I have Ahi Han.
Thank you for having us. My wife and I moved to La Cañada for the schools. Once our children started in the system, we realized very quickly that it's not just our wonderful teachers and thoughtful administration that make things work around here. La Cañada's community members add the it factor to our schools. They have consistently been that secret weapon that always show up to volunteer, always open their checkbooks for donations, and always lend a voice when it comes to shaping district vision. Why has this group of parents been such a proven asset? It's because we live in an amazingly diverse community, ethnically, occupations, political views, religions, the list goes on. The intelligence and thoughtfulness of this diverse group coming together for one common goal, our children, has been an unstoppable force. I guess that's why I felt the need to speak tonight. The division I'm witnessing among parents is not only upsetting, but more importantly, it's concerning to see this once united group with one goal, let politics take center stage. DEI has been the center of this. Watching school board meetings over the past year, there has been a consistent group of parents with a very loud voice. I may shock you right now by saying thank you to those parents. Thank you for the early recognition that the plan was flawed. Thank you for pointing out that the consultant was flawed. Thank you for pointing out that the reference materials were flawed. But here's where the thank yous stop. For those with the loud voices that have now moved on from being an asset of our community to being straight up bullies, in some cases in an anonymous form, enough is enough. The district listened to your initial concerns. They slowed down. They have all but disavowed the consultant's work. They have made it clear that critical race theory has no place in our district. They have changed the makeup of the DI committee to include some of those early and loud opposing voices. I get it. When you first raised your voices, you felt it was a triage type environment. You had to work fast. You had to use whatever you had at your disposal to get things done. We are just so far beyond that point. Please understand that the current narrative and current tone being used by you does not represent the community as a whole. Please be clear, you do not speak for me. You do not speak for what I can confidently say is the majority of our district. There is no room for mob mentality in this community. There is certainly no room to bully our teachers. It is time for a civilized dialogue at the table. We are not a private school making unilateral decisions. We are beholden to the county and state. We have guardrails to work within, and this board has to make actual decisions based on these guardrails. I hear Wendy say over and over that we're putting the integrity of our high-performing scholastic model ahead of everything else. I hear Wendy say we'll be putting the LC stamp on this. That LC stamp, in my eyes, is a community stamp. It stands for all of us, not just some. It's a stamp of compromise. It's a stamp that represents the work of an entire community with different views and beliefs, sharing knowledge, and doing what we've always done in the past, coming together as an unstoppable force that neighboring communities strive to duplicate. In closing, my ask is simple. Let's be neighbors again. Let's be neighbors that engage in peaceful, intelligent conversation. Let's be neighbors that continue to educate one another, and through mutual education, land on compromise that works for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gordon. After Ms. Han, I'm going to ask Greg Nasser to come up. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ahi Han, and I am a parent of 2 kids at LCE. Social justice has been a large part of the national discussion, and whether it's been from the news or seeing protests and marches happening in our community, our kids have been seeing what's been going on, and they've been asking questions. Tough questions, I would say, pertaining to race and ethnicity in America. My own kids, who are now in 3rd and 5th grade in the last year, have seen, read, or heard about the George Floyd protests, hate crimes against Asian Americans, BLM, and consequently have raised many questions. And I can honestly say I didn't know how to answer those questions. It felt daunting, and the topics were too heavy for my own comfort. But when my daughter asked, with true fear in her eyes, if she would ever get attacked for being Asian, I knew I had to help my children understand what's going on in the world and where they would fit in. I knew by ignoring their questions, I would be teaching my kids that race is not important and inadvertently instilling insecurities. Decades of research indicate that even if parents and adults are not talking about race and other differences, children still notice differences and prejudice. Furthermore, racial identity and attitudes begin to develop in children at a young age. And at the age of 2 and 3, children become aware of the differences between boys and girls, may begin noticing obvious physical disabilities, become curious about skin color and hair color and texture, and may also be aware of ethnic identity. If we choose not to teach our kids about these observations, children's notions about race and differences will go unchecked and likely become further entrenched in their minds. If my kids ask their teachers about social justice topics, I would appreciate teachers acknowledging them and addressing these concepts in a rich and engaging and, of course, age-appropriate way. And seeing our teachers reading books on these topics and brainstorming among one another gives me the confidence that they will be well equipped with the tools and the resources to do so. I am thankful to the teachers and staff that are engaging in these conversations as part of their professional development, as I'm sure there are plenty of other daily demands on their time. I have the utmost confidence in our educators that they will be able to, without bias, respond to our kids when asked the tough questions about diversity and race, as well as other social justice issues, which can only help our kids make sense of the reality that we live in. So thank you again for all that you do, and thank you again for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Nasser, one moment. Ms. Han, I just wanted to say thank you for clarifying the pronunciation of your name. With a first name like Heitzer, it's important for me to pronounce everyone's name correctly. So, Ehi, thank you. Mr. Nasser.
I may be one of the only people that didn't prepare something ahead of time, so I don't know, I'm just going to read from the dictionary for 2 minutes. No, just kidding. I want to say that I drive home every day, and I'm driving and driving, and I think, man, I'm really lucky I get to raise my kids in this community. It's an amazing place. And I'm not sure why I'm getting emotional, but I think what I'm noticing, I'm a salesman. People like, you have the elevator pitch when you're in sales, get to the crux of the matter. And I think what is most concerning to me is that what we have is a scenario where there's a bunch of people who are assuming the worst of one side and a bunch of people who are assuming the worst of the other side. And so I don't at all see a scenario where we have a board that thinks nothing's wrong and nothing needs to be fixed. And I don't at all see that we have a bunch of crazy parents who are whacked out and shouldn't be heard. It's somewhere in the middle, right? These are hard questions. We need to keep asking them in a civil way. And we have a board that I trust. I've been on baseball fields with these guys. I've been working out with people that have spoke that are from opposite ends of this spectrum. We've got to assume the best about each other and then trust that, look, if no one on this board ever responds to anything we say, yeah, that's an issue. But that's not who they are, right? This is a hard job. These guys don't get paid for it. The ones that do get paid for it put in way more hours than they're supposed to. So please keep raising the issues. Wendy, I love the idea of the conversations. Let's have them. Let's address them because the issues are hard and they're real, and let's assume the best of each other, not the worst. So thank you all, everyone, for sharing your voices. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nasser. I have Mandy Redfern next. And after Mandy, I have Vidya Ramaswamy.
Good evening. Mandy Redfern. I'm the president of the La Cañada Teachers Association. It is incredibly hard to believe we are already on week 3 of this unprecedented school year. I'm speaking today on behalf of more than 200 educators in our La Cañada public schools. I want to acknowledge the amazing work that has been happening in the halls of all of our schools, despite the fact that we're still in the middle of a pandemic. Congratulations to the 7-8 for a successful back-to-school night, and to all of the elementary schools for a wonderful back-to-school picnic. The high school has experienced their first football game and lots of other firsts. And it's so wonderful to be able to celebrate those things together. Despite the many obstacles of the 21-22 school year, the staff remains committed to facing this adversity with the promise of providing the best possible experience for all of our students. We, the teachers of La Cañada Teachers Association, are so thankful for our administrative and classified staffs that we work with tirelessly each day. We're also thankful for all of the supportive parents who are working in partnership with our teachers. We remain dedicated to the art of continuous growth, and we remain committed to supporting our students as they do that themselves. We want to prepare our students to be critical thinkers, good citizens, future leaders by giving them an honest look at where we've been and where we are today. We share a mission to lead by example, and our students rightfully deserve to feel seen and heard by the role models that they are taught by each day. As educators, we lead with humility and truth, and we have a responsibility to support each other on our varying paths of personal growth. We continue to thank you, our school board, and our district administration for your support as we navigate this challenging school year. We continue to be committed to work together with you and our community to strive for a safe, inspiring, and student-centered learning environment. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. After Vidya, I have Rex Nishimura.
Hello, I'm Vidya Ramaswamy, and I think...
Can I have you come closer to the
Is this
microphone?
better?
Thank you.
So I'm Vidya, and I'm here to make a slightly abrupt segue to COVID protocol. Is that okay, or should I wait my turn?
Could we have you wait for the agenda item?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Dr. All right, Rex, if I could have you come up. And after Rex, I have Eric Fan. Thank you. And forgive me, I'm just going to stand to move around a little.
Good evening, board and citizens. Tonight I've got a story about the indoctrination of children. 50 years ago, I was an honors English student here at this school. My classroom was a stone's throw away. To get in the honors English class, you had to write well, and I was a writer. Just like today, back then the pet term of the day was racism, and we focused on it for the whole year. Unfortunately, when I wrote about the goodness of America, my teacher believed that white culture was racist, and he indoctrinated us at every opportunity. My essays were returned to me covered with red ink. Though I tried to follow his instructions, my essays only angered him further. And there I was, an honors student flunking an honors English class. One of the books we studied was Mark Twain's Huckleberry Finn. For the final exam, our assignment was to put Huck Finn's father on trial for racial crimes. I figured I had nothing to lose, so I decided to play along. I wrote a damning piece and convicted poor Mr. Finn of prejudice and racism against the Black and Indian cultures. A week later, I got my essay back with an A+ with the comments, "Well done. I cannot believe how much your writing has improved this year." I was disgusted, and you should be too, because that's what we're up against. We're up against biased teachers who will use the power of the grade to subjugate and repress the beliefs of our children. What happened to me 50 years ago will happen again, but now it's been supercharged by the CRT craze, which you wholeheartedly embrace. You've hired prejudiced community organizers rather than impartial teachers. And these organizers will certainly attempt to brainwash our children with their tyrannical propaganda. Don't play innocent, because this has been going on for 50 years, and I think everybody knows what I'm talking about. If you don't take steps to rein in or dismiss, then you're the spawn of that English teacher, and you'll become the evil that he was. I ask you tonight to dismiss, to repudiate CRT, and expunge it from the curriculum. We forced our kids to ride on a 50-year communist racial guilt trip, and it's time to get off. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rex. Thank you. Thank you. I have Eric Fan, and after Eric Fan, Nazi Matubi. Thank you.
Good evening, members of the board, Superintendent Sinet. Thank you for having me here and listening to what I and a large group of the community members have to say. We all have worked tirelessly this past year, almost two, to promote diversity, equity, inclusion. You all wanted to create a positive atmosphere, where I think, Joe, you said something to the effect that you just wanted to make better kids. Unfortunately, in this journey, critical race theory kept rearing its ugly head. At every opportunity, this board, to include you, Wendy, have taken the opportunities to distance the school district and its practices from critical race theory. In fact, Joe, you used Mythbusters. And you said it was a myth that the district was contemplating any incorporation of CRT into our curriculum. Keitzer, you even asked Wendy, where did CRT come from? Is this something that we're going to incorporate into our curriculum? Which Wendy stated no. In fact, Wendy, and I'm sorry if I misquote you, you said something to the effect of wanting to teach critical thinking and not critical race theory to our kids. Tonight, you even continued that tone and stated that you're not going to incorporate CRT. You all have been saying that, the leadership, the board, okay, but unfortunately some of our administrators and teachers are not. They are not following your leadership and guidance. In fact, they are doing the exact opposite. They have clearly expressed hate of our grade school age children for the color of their skin. They have clearly expressed their hatred for our community because of the color of our skin. They are supporting taking down of the system, okay, that you folks are supposed to be enforcing, okay? In fact, they hate so much that they want to leave this country. I'm very disappointed at that. Remember, this all took place a year ago when we all, were working hard to remove hate from our community. After all, isn't this what started this DEI journey? Was that our school district was trying to remove the hate? This insubordination has to stop. You all have to take control again. Let's stop using hate to stop hate. Let's stop using racism to stop racism. Let's stop using prejudice to stop prejudice. Because if this continues, all you're going to do is create the next generation of haters and racists. DEI is not going to stand for diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's going to stand for divisive, exclusive, and intolerant. And I don't want that to happen, Wendy. I want you to be successful. All right, let's get behind you and let's get behind what DEI is supposed to be. Okay, not the CRT. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nazi? Thank you. We'll go on to Susanna Griffith. Nazi? Yes, I think you're talking about the reopening, the agenda item you'd like to speak on. Yes, I've got you circled. Susanna Griffith, please.
My name is Susanna Griffith. I'm a parent of 4 kids in the district. One is a graduate who's an officer in the Marine Corps. One is in college. Hoorah, whoever said that. And then I have 2 who are currently enrolled at the schools. And I'm not a Marxist, I'm not a socialist. I'm an American parent who hates public speaking and prefers to watch these meetings at home on YouTube quietly with my cup of tea. But I'm here tonight because I wanted to be public about the fact that I support our board, our teachers, and our administrators, and our current plan. And I just wanted to publicly state that support because these meetings and a lot of the action in the community tend to feature people who disagree with what the board is doing or have a complaint, and that's not me. So, for the record, I and many people like me support DEI, support masks and vaccination during the pandemic, support teachers being allowed to have a Zoom chat about curriculum, and support all the district is doing to care for our kids, from the introverts and the people who are happy with what we were doing, Thank you, and keep it up. There are a lot of us quietly supporting you.
Thank you, Ms. Cook. Thank you, everyone. On behalf of the governing board, I have to say thank you to everyone who spoke. Differing opinions, extremely important, and the opportunity for us to learn from each other, to look at what is happening, to truly address the issues will continue. And I appreciate the feedback. I welcome the continued comments, but let's just move forward productively, and we will accomplish all that we need to and maintain this amazing district that we are all a part of. Thank you. Now, we'll move on to proposed action and discussion items. The next, I think we're okay. I'm just going to, Joe was suggesting a break. I think we're just going to keep moving forward. I invite everyone to stay. If you choose not to, that's fine. Obviously, you can see the meetings on YouTube, continue to see the meetings on YouTube, but we'll just keep moving forward. If you need to take a break, you can. Again, thank you everyone for your comments. I'm going to move on to item number 9, which is proposed action and discussion items. Next item on the agenda is 10. This is a public hearing. Public hearing A, and I'll ask everyone to just, if you don't mind, as you're exiting, maybe keep it a little quiet so we can continue with the meeting. Thank you all. The next item, as I said, is the public hearing. Resolution 12122, Statement of Assurance of Availability of Pupil Textbooks and Instructional Material for Fiscal Year 2021-2022 for grades K through 12. This is an opportunity for the public to comment on whatever the district has, or whether or not the district has sufficient textbooks. So at this point, I'd like to open the public hearing. Thank you, everyone. Are there any public comments relative to the topic of the public hearing? Okay, hearing none, I will close the public hearing and we'll move on to our first reading items. Our first reading item is Resolution 12122, Statement of Assurance of Availability of Pupil Textbooks and Instructional Material for Fiscal Year 2021-2022, and this is for grades K through 12. We as a board are being asked to adopt this resolution. And I believe Anais went. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kaiser. Law requires districts to hold a public hearing and to certify that the district has sufficient textbooks and instructional
I'm so sorry, Anais, if I could have you speak a little closer, as there's still some dialogue in the back. Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
I can.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. Law requires districts to hold a public hearing and to certify that the district has sufficient textbooks and instructional materials for each student, or will have, prior to the end of the fiscal year. The textbooks and our instructional materials are to be consistent with the curriculum standards, framework, and adoption cycle established by the state board. Each site submits textbook and instructional material requests to the district's curriculum office, which in turn uses state textbook funds to order state-adopted instructional materials as appropriate for each student in the district. In addition, sites also use categorical funds to finance any additional requests not covered by state funds. Each student has an individual copy of the adopted textbooks, kindergarten through 12th grade. We're asking the governing board to adopt Resolution 12122 to certify that the district has complied with the requirements of Education Code Section 60119 and California Code of Regulations, Title 5, Section 9531D.
Okay, thank you, Anais. This is an annual adoption that we make, correct? Is that accurate?
Every year we have to
do
this. Yeah.
So if I could have a motion to accept the resolution?
I move to approve Resolution 1-21-22.
Thank you, Dan. Do I have a second?
I second.
Thank you, Caroline. Any questions, discussions? This is the resolution. We opened and closed the hearing. There was no public comment. This is now the resolution. Hearing no questions or comments. All in favor of adopting the resolution?
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you so much. We are
Thank
moving
you.
on. Thank you, Anais. We are moving on to item number B. This is the appointment of members of the Parcel Tax Oversight Committee. We as a board are being asked to approve the compilation of the members. And Mark, we will move to you to introduce, and we'll move forward.
Yes. Just about 18 months ago, the community passed Measure LC, the parcel tax, on March 3rd, 2020. And part of that resolution and that parcel tax was an oversight committee, and the board approved the bylaws for that at their June 9th, 2020 meeting. And we currently have several members serving: Sid Karsh, Catherine Margraf, Tyler Roberts, Matt Weber, and Nellie Uretzian. And we're working to stagger the terms. So we have a new appointment we are requesting. He's here this evening. Eugene Robin is right here, and we'd like to submit his name for you to appoint to the Parcel Tax Oversight Committee.
Thank you so much. If I could have a motion to approve the appointment members, or the appointment of members to the Parcel Tax Oversight Committee. Joe?
I make the motion to approve Eugene to our Parcel Tax Oversight Committee.
Thank you so much. I have a second.
I'll second.
Thank you so much, Josh. I just want to thank the members of our community who are serving on the committee, and Eugene for stepping up to join the committee. Any comments, questions?
I'd also like to thank, having known what the Parcel Tax Oversight Committee is charged with, and making certain that the dollars are being well spent and properly spent based on the ballot initiative. It is perhaps tedious work, but it's very involved and very important and very critical to our success, that our taxpayers know that the money is being well spent. So I know Matt's here, and our new member, Eugene, thank you. Do we have any other members here tonight?
I don't believe so.
Okay, for the ones that aren't here also, thank you very much for your service. I know it is a lot of long hours, a lot of review of documents, a lot of poring over financials, and it is greatly appreciated. Thank you all.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor of the acceptance and the appointment of new members to the Parcel Tax Oversight Committee?
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you so much, and we welcome the oversight and the focus on making sure that, as Dan was saying, the funds are appropriately utilized. Item number C is the appointment of Measure LCF Oversight Committee members. Mark?
Yes, and actually I'd like to share that there are other spaces available on the Parcel Tax Oversight Committee, so we're still opening and accepting applications. The other oversight committee we have is for our bond measure. That was Measure LCF, passed in November of 2017, and that Oversight Committee looks at all of the construction and makes sure that we are following the guidelines of the resolution and the bond, and the dollars are being spent appropriately and properly on the bond projects. Currently, our members are Charles Giles, Mike Leininger, Malik Amarpreet, and Randy Scoville. We are again staggering terms. Jacob Tujian is on the slate to approve tonight. He is returning, and Scott Hoffman, a new member, is on the slate also, and we're requesting their approval. This committee also has room for more members, and the applications are still open as well.
Thank you, Mark. I would ask for a motion to approve the appointment of new members.
So moved.
Thank you so much. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Josh. We have a motion and a second. Again, I would like to extend my sincere thanks for the continued support and involvement and commitment to the district. Any other comments or questions?
I think, again, are any of the members of that committee here tonight?
I didn't notice any of the members here this evening.
Okay, again, it's another job that's really behind the scenes to make sure that our general obligation bond funds are spent properly. Anyone who sees all the construction going on around our district right now realize this is a tremendous task, and it's tremendously important, because it's important for our community to trust, again, that the money is being well spent. So thank them all for their work, please.
Absolutely. Hearing no other questions, I'll call the question. All in favor of the appointment, approval of the appointments?
Aye.
Unanimously accepted. Thank you, Mark, and thank you to the committee members and volunteers who are giving their time. Next agenda item is the review of suggested protocol changes to the LCUSD school reopening and safety plan for this academic year and the staff recommended action items. This is not an approval item, but it is an opportunity for us to hear from our Superintendent, Wendy, who will introduce the topic generally. We will have some general discussion from the board, and then I'd like to move to public comment and then come back, because as you saw, or you may have seen on the agenda, the items being discussed, there's several items on the list, but some are going to be voted upon and some are just informational. So we will take the voted items one at a time after we have this general introduction of the topic. Wendy.
Before we begin, can I ask a quick question? I know we're having some video issues on YouTube. Are people able to see the slides, or the slides they just can't see the video? Okay.
Yeah, I just put the slides up right now.
Okay.
You just put the slides up right now? Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Josh, for highlighting that. But we do have this taped so that someone could take, members of the community who want to see can see it later.
We weren't able to get the video part isn't working, but the slides, everybody will at home will be able to see the slides.
Okay, thank you. All right, Wendy.
Thank you, Kiteser. This is a lengthy agenda item, but just to reiterate what Kiteser shared, we're going to do a real quick overview, and then the board will engage in discussion, hear the public comment on an item in its totality, and then we're going to go line by line with staff recommendations. All of these items have been gathered from community feedback, and some are being recommended for action by staff. Others are, we're not requesting board action, but the board will review, engage, and then determine its direction item by item. So I know this is a reiteration, but it's just important to always center ourselves on our commitment. We have opened with great success, but great challenges continue to exist. We've said over tonight, these are unprecedented times, especially as we deal with the Delta variant, which has added complexities. But we're working together. We're continuing our practice of making adjustments, doing a phased approach to all of our protocols, trying as best we can to follow the science, and ensuring that our decision-making is informed, flexible, and that we're working together. So these recommendations are the next steps that we want to take, but all of these steps frame our reopening plan. We want our students, staff, and our families to be safe, to be healthy. We have high expectations for how our district will perform in the face of COVID-19 and all of our protocols. We see every challenge as an opportunity, and the opportunities for success are great. Our learning experiences have informed our planning, and that's why we feel so successful with our phased and iterative approach. We maintain situational awareness on COVID-19. I'm on 2 phone calls a week with Dr. Ferrer at the office, or the County Office of Public Health. Our administrators are in their own fields, reaching out for best practices. For example, on Thursday of this week, Jason Ito will be on a call with Public Health regarding the youth sports protocols. So everybody's pitching in, everybody is making sure that we're doing whatever we can to remain safe and healthy. And all of that culminates with a huge thank you, a big heartfelt expression of our gratitude to our teachers, staff, parents, and administrators, and especially our children. Students, it's a great joy to see you back on campus. People are following the mask requirements with fidelity, maintaining physical distancing, and ensuring that each and every step that we take leads us to the next level of mitigation and certainty. So there are numerous items that the board has poured through. We will take them line by line once the board engages in general discussion and we hear public comment. So I turn it over to you, Kiteser, for board discussion, and then public comment, and then I'll walk us all through all 16 items.
Okay, thank you again. And again, I apologize for continually standing up. I literally was in a car for 6 hours driving back from Cal yesterday visiting my daughter, and I was on the computer pretty much all day today, so I just need to stand up a little more often than I usually do. So we are moving to some discussion here. I do want to go ahead and open it up for general discussion, and then we can continue the comments from our public, and I have 14 comments from the public. Dan.
Thank you, Ms. President. I guess I would start by reiterating what our primary goals are. Our primary goals are twofold. We want to keep our kids safe, and we want to keep our schools open. I think all of us agree on that. All of us on the board, as well as the administration, have been receiving a number of emails recently. Most of the emails I've received are from local doctors, pediatricians that we trust, pediatricians that we take our kids to, doctors that are emergency room doctors that we see when we have a crisis. These are experts, they're local, they know our community. Their comments are not political. They're giving us the best views that they have from a medical standpoint. These are busy individuals who took the time out of their busy COVID lives to share their views. And due to that, I think that we should give great deference to the views of our local doctors and our local pediatricians. And to a one, they're all telling us that there's some things that we should accomplish. Now, it may be hard for us to get to that point because of logistics and expenses, but they're all telling us that we should go towards a goal of vaccination of all adults, everyone that's over 16 on our campuses. They're also telling us that everyone should be tested weekly. Again, a logistical challenge of that, but they're telling us that that is the best way to go forward, and to not opt out, we need to test 100% of our population. They're telling us that we need to maximize the social distance between our kids inside and out, meaning both in the classrooms and also outside. And they're also telling us that we need to maximize the use of our masks, both inside and out. That's their expert medical opinions. I know that there's a number of logistical issues. Some of the school districts that have imposed vaccinations are going to be looking at litigation, and I know for a small district like that, litigation would be challenging. I also know that testing is challenging because we're ramping up testing as quickly as we can, but it's also a logistical challenge. So it is with those comments that I would suggest that we make all of those our goals as much as possible to comply with what our medical experts are telling us.
Thank you so much, Dan. Anything else? We will definitely come back and have discussion further after public comment.
I just have a question for Wendy. Wendy, obviously you spent a lot of time and we've had a chance to preview this. What are your top 3 things you'd like to see solved based on your first 2 or 3 weeks here, 2 weeks in? What were I mean, some of it's reflected, but if you had to say, well, here's my top 2 or 3 priorities, what would you want us to pay attention to closely?
Thank you. That's a good question. I think that we really need to get to a couple of places. We've leaned in. I think it's important to note that this has all been new. We knew our summer planning was consistent. It was full throttle. We hired an additional district nurse, additional testing staff. We've been really prepared. But with the Delta variant sort of, emerging on the scene and us realizing that there are breakthrough cases with vaccinated people, our students are testing positive. We've just had to navigate the landscape with a wider lens. So I would like to see us get to what Dan said, where we were testing all students once a week. I would like to see us have all adults vaccinated. I'm strongly committed, and it's not political, but I'm committed to encouraging anyone 12 and older to be vaccinated, because the other challenge we're facing is in-person instruction is the best. We've done a Herculean job of trying to shore up and guarantee a progress through the curriculum wherever we can if a quarantine is required, but in-person is the best. The way to guarantee in-person instruction, given the current orders from public health, is be vaccinated. So I think, just to summarize, weekly testing for all, making sure, and we won't get there tonight, but these are
goals.
These are goals with our entire program. weekly testing for all, vaccination for all adults 16 and older, and then, wherever we can, making sure that there's an equity of experience, or that we're bringing everything we can to the table for our students who are dealing with quarantine, because we have to make sure that that we're not engaged with, that we're mitigating learning loss wherever possible.
Thanks. That sets the stage.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. So why don't we go to the public right now, and then we can come back and have dialogue and discussion, and then vote item by item. The first, well, before I go any further, are there any students who'd like to speak? Okay.
Madam President, I invited our student board member because I was especially interested in students' perspective on masking on campus. My observation on campus is that even though it's voluntary outdoors, most of our students are masking outdoors. I see Mr. Cartnell nodding. I think that was the experience, and I do see another student. Maybe we could just address that, because even though we've done it as a voluntary basis, it is my belief that most of our students are doing that now.
Thank you, Dan. And Jessica, go ahead, please. Yes.
When it comes to masking on campus, I can say personally, and
can I, just for the record,
oh,
your name, and then we'll
yes,
we'll
sorry.
have you continue. No problem. Thank you.
Jessica Mason. Thank you. When it comes to masking on campus, I can say from personal experience and from many of my peers, is that we all feel very safe when the majority of students are wearing masks, and I do believe that it's very important, because we all want to stay in person at school, and masks at school is what makes us feel safe, and I do think it's a necessity. That's all I wanted to say.
Jessica, thank you for speaking. Okay. Truly appreciate student feedback and input. Belinda Randolph is first on the list. Tracy Nelson is second, and I have Matt Burnett third on the list in order to speak on this topic. Thank you. We'll try and keep us close to 2 minutes, but we've gone to 3, and it's okay at this point. We'll just keep going.
Do you want the wipe down of the microphone before we get started?
I'm good.
Okay, thank you.
I like the fact that the previous speaker was wearing a mask. In fact, that's what I came to talk to everybody about. My name is Belinda Randolph. I'm a parent of 2 LCUSD graduates, and I love our public schools. Masks are an issue that is near and dear to my heart. I've already changed my mask once tonight to have a better one. And that is helpful to me. I also spent my day at work addressing the issue of mask wearing and mask compliance. I met with 2 different supervisors to discuss the fact that their employees were not wearing masks, because I care about my team that I work with. I care about every member on that team. And those people that I work with are parents in this district with kids in this district. And if we don't wear masks like this gentleman right here, then our kids are going to get sick, and then our coworkers are going to get sick.
Hold on, everybody. Belinda, I'll just have you focus on the comments, and then everyone in the audience, if you want to speak, absolutely. Thank you.
So LCUSD took care of my kids, and I appreciate all the parents and the employees that are wearing masks that are well fitted tonight. And I request that the board take steps to encourage even more people to stand up and wear masks and to keep our community safe. Specifically, if the district could come up with funds to provide more PPE to our teachers and our employee and our staff, in case they don't already. I'd like to also request that the teachers are offered microphones so that when they are wearing their masks, they can be heard clearly, so they don't feel the need to pull off their mask. And I also would like that the district support the teachers that send mask violators out of the classroom and into the principal's office. The teachers need that autonomy. Sorry I ran late.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me have the comments come up. I'd be happy to speak and continue the conversation. So the next person on the list is Tracy Nelson. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Tracy. Mr. Burnett.
Maybe we should, I've got a better idea. Maybe we should just come up with a way to more easily figure out what kids have been vaxxed, what haven't. Maybe we could put an armband on them. Maybe just have like a yellow star or something on it that makes it easy.
Mr. Burnett, I'm going to have you
vaxxed.
speak to us directly at this point. I really want to maintain, and I know there's differing opinions, but I want to give
I'll speak to you.
Please. I understand, and I stopped her. If you note that,
That's where we're headed. That's where we're headed. Okay.
And we don't want to head in that direction. And we'll just try and do the best we can to really be as focused on resolution and compliance as much as possible. But thank you, Mr.
Yeah. Well, let's let the Gestapo in here and talk about all of that. We all have doctors that we know in our community. The one thing that's clear is you talk to 10 different doctors, you can get 10 different opinions, okay? Why aren't we addressing the fact, though, that, we talk about the science, and nobody wants to address the fact that the CDC shows deaths 18 and under from COVID are running 50% of the annual flu. The official data out of Great Britain and Israel now show that the majority of their COVID-related deaths are among the fully vaccinated, more than among the unvaccinated. Oh yeah, look it up.
Hold on, everyone. Please allow Mr. Burnett to continue.
Look it up. Yes, the COVID deaths in Great Britain now are at a higher percentage among the fully vaccinated people than the unvaccinated. Okay? New COVID infections are anywhere between 30 and 40% in those countries among fully vaccinated people. All right? The masks that everybody is wearing in this room are releasing up to 90% of the transmittable particles. Unless you're wearing N95 masks, all of these are a joke, okay? Those are the facts, but we know it's not about facts, it's not about science, it's about power, it's about control. I'm sure we're gonna hear again from the esteemed doctor from Iran that boasted last meeting about her encouragement to this board last year about shutting down our schools, and now how we should test the snot out of our kids. What happened to the opt-out option that parents were given last time? Is that off the table now? Now I hear mandatory testing. It's coming.
These are just discussions, but I'll let you continue,
Okay, well,
Mr. Burnett.
I'm glad they're discussions. Let's see where they go. It's just again. I mean, it's shameful that it would just refusal to put the mental well-being of kids first. There's no discussion about the number of deaths of 18 and under kids. How about the increase in deaths from suicide, drug abuse? I guarantee you those numbers alone probably outpace the deaths from COVID for kids 18 and under. Nobody's talking about that. Nobody's talking about that harm to our kids in our community. This is a much bigger issue than vaccination, unvaccination. There's a bigger idea at play here, and that has to do something that, none of these teachers want to teach anymore in school. There's like basic ideas of liberty and what the role of our government and where our laws originate from. They don't originate from the state. They don't originate from Washington, Sacramento. They come from God. It's why we are a nation under God, not over him. It's why in God we trust, not in Biden or Trump or Gavin Newsom. Civil authority is not absolute. It's delegated to civil bodies in as much and to the extent that it doesn't violate our God-given rights. Life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. When it does, it's tyranny, and it's the duty of lesser magistrates like yourself and ultimately to the people to resist that authority. Doctors don't create our flippin' laws. They don't create policy. And when some other body does that violates our God-given rights, we do not comply.
Thank you, Mr. Burnett. You're over 3 minutes. Thank you so much. If I could have Noel Burnett come up, please. Thank you so much, Ms. Burnett. Okay. Ms. Kelly Davis. After Ms. Kelly Davis, I have Nirosha Ruwan.
I wasn't sure how you guys were going to do this with the different points, but I just wanted to say my sophomore thinks masks are no big deal. It's just part of the drill now. She and her friends are very comfortable with it. And when you get to point number 8 about how the protocols are going to be changed or upgraded at the high school, I fully endorse that. I would love to see the kids that are exposed also have testing required. And I heard you say you don't quite have the capacity to do mandatory testing for all the kids at this point, but when that is available, I would really encourage that. I hear from a lot of other parents that they'd like to see testing happen among the kids. So thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Hold on 1 second. All right, thank you.
Hello, I'm Narosha Ruwan, and my kids go to LCE and 7-8. My kids are really excited to be back in the classroom. I love seeing them so engaged with learning. The reason I'm interested in this issue is because I want them to stay in person, school as long as possible. I understand that there's a risk when kids are in school and we can't eliminate it completely, but I do believe that we should be guided by science and implement reasonable measures to keep our kids safe and our schools open. I'm happy to hear tonight is the first time I'm hearing that the board recognizes that weekly testing without opt-outs and vaccination is the ultimate goal. I hope you will make a statement and I hope you could discuss and agree to that. I guess my concern right now is that it seems what's holding you back is lack of resources, either financial or lack of personnel. So I would like more information about that. I want to know what you would need to reach those goals. Like what is preventing us from having weekly testing, at least of unvaccinated elementary school students. I also wanted to address specifically one of the protocol suggestions, number 14, baseline testing for all students. Baseline testing is a one-time test of all students and staff, both vaccinated and unvaccinated. Baseline testing has been widely recognized as an effective public health measure. The LA County Department of Public Health recommends it to the extent the district is capable of administrating the testing. So I want to know what is preventing our district from doing this, since it's been recognized as a best practice. What are the resources and financial costs? What is the exact obstacles to do this? I also wanted to have questions on protocol number 7 about the elementary protocol. For that one, my question is, when will the elementary testing start? It sounds like it says on the slides that the timing depends on securing adequate testing personnel and resources, but that doesn't really provide much comfort. We're in the 3rd week. When is this going to start, and what are the resources that you're waiting for? I just want to end by saying thank you all for all your hard work. I really know that this is not necessarily the jobs you signed up for, so I really recognize everybody's efforts, and I'm thankful to be in this district.
Thank you. Stacy, Craig, I know it's getting to be a long meeting and masks are uncomfortable. I know I find them uncomfortable myself, but I would ask everyone to put them over your nose. I see several people. It's kind of dropping a little bit. So thank you. I appreciate your cooperation. Stacy Craig, please. And then after Stacy, I have Lorraine Cheng.
Hi, I just want to say I agree with the recommendations from the pediatricians discussed at the beginning by Dan. I think we should err on the side of caution and keep our kids and our community safe. The ultimate goal is for everyone to stay in school, and I don't see any harm. Kids do a great job wearing a mask, testing. These things are not a big deal.
Excuse me.
So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Abraham. Thank you, Stacy. Lorraine.
Have you been to the elementary school?
Mr. Abraham, please feel free to come up. I'd be happy to add you to the list to speak. Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Lorraine Cheng. I am a Paradise Canyon graduate. I'm a La Cañada High School grad. I'm also the mother of a TKer.
If I could have you come a little closer to the mic. Thank you so much.
I'm the mother of a TKer. I have a 2nd grader at a PCY. I am also an urgent care physician that has been on the front lines of this pandemic from day one. I'm one of the people who was driving on an empty freeway when everything closed, going to a full urgent care and a full ER, and I have been doing so up till the moment I came to this meeting. I take care of COVID patients every day, 12 hours on Sunday. Today, I have touched, I have examined, I've auscultated, I've held the hands of more COVID patients than anybody here in this room. And COVID doesn't scare me. It is a disease that patients get, and it's a disease I respect. And I am not fearful, but I do know that there are precautions that you can put in place that are effective, that are grounded in science, that are practiced, that are consensus-based. And it's because of this that I stayed up to see you all, to talk to you all, even though I have a 12-hour shift tomorrow doing the same thing. I thank you, all of you, for doing the brave job that you've been doing. I want you to know in the darkest days of the pandemic, when sometimes I told my children that I may not come home if it gets too bad because I don't want to get them sick, I thought of my teachers who drove in, who worked hard, who did their best, because they believe in something that I believe, that our jobs are sometimes more than monetary, that they mean more, that we are trying to do things to make things better for everybody. So thank you. Please consider pushing masking not only from inside but also outside. I like limiting inside class sizes. I would love to see more done to keep things in cohorts, especially staff members. I know kids are kept in cohorts. And thank you for listening to me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor.
And we won't feel ignored if you choose to leave to rest before your 12-hour shift. I'm sure all of us are waiting to finish our comments so that we can all rest. So thank you, everyone, for sticking through. Please forgive me if I say this wrong, Meghana Bhatt. And correct me on how to...
It's Meghana, and everybody gets it wrong, so don't worry about it.
Again, Kaiser, so...
So first I want to say how appreciative I am. I have two boys in LCE, 1st and 5th grade. Last year, I was blown away by the efforts of this district to turn around, do schooling at home, do it safely. And as much as I appreciate how well you did that, I think you did it as well as it could be done. The difference between that and my children actually being in school is immense. So I'm just asking you to listen to our pediatricians, do everything we can to keep the schools open, make it safe for everybody to go, encourage as much vaccination as we possibly can, and I would love to have more testing, particularly in the elementary schools where the children cannot be vaccinated. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Vidya, come on up, and then Nazi after. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Vidya Ramaswamy, and I was thrilled to hear that the district is considering comprehensive testing. Comprehensive testing for everybody, all students, vaxxed or unvaxxed, all staff, all teachers. The recent incident in Marin County where a teacher was, I understand the teacher took off her mask and so on, but the teacher's ability to infect a class is kind of outsized just because we're projecting when you speak. So if we could test all our teachers weekly, vaxxed or unvaxxed, it's great to hear that there's such a high rate of vaccination. That would be excellent. And I'm, again, really glad that everybody is we're considering testing everybody. My son went to PCY on Thursday last week for a voluntary test. He'll be going again this week. He's not yet vaccinated, soon. But thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments. Nazi?
Hello, everyone. I wanted to thank Superintendent Sinet and the entire board for considering all our precautions and all the emails that we've sent to you. And thank you for naming me the doctor from Iran. You know, I'm just a physician caring about our community. I have a son that's in college. He was a graduate here. Ms. Blaney was our principal when my son was, and is when he was going through, and I have a sophomore daughter. The kids are very safe. They're wearing their masks. They really appreciate their teachers and the due diligence in class, the masking, and keeping them safe. I am just a person from Iran who went through war, who's gone, and I was in India when there was a lot going on, and now I'm a proud United States citizen. I've done a lot of work, and I just want to keep our community safe and keep our kids in school, because the mental illness, the drugs, and everything that was mentioned happen when our children are isolated, and we've had enough 18 months of isolation to the point of kids going to college and just being overwhelmed because they're out and they were not used to it for 18 months. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and I love being part of this community. And thank you so much for you teachers, because my kids are what they are because of you, because I've been busy working day in and day out, because I want to live in La Cañada, which is a great school district, and I'm very thankful to the entire teacher staff, all the staff, principals, for everything they're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. I think, Nairi, we have 3 call-ins. Okay. The first one is Leah Lynn. We have, these are call-ins.
Can you hear me?
Leah, just a little louder, but would appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, how's this?
Perfect.
Okay, thank you. My name is Leah Lynn. I'm a physician. Thank you for letting me speak with you today. My husband and I are elementary school parents, and we are both physicians who've been seeing patients suffer from COVID for the past 17 months, like the doctor who just spoke and like Dr. Lorraine Chang. Needless to say, we're very concerned about COVID protocols and safety, and thus want to do as much as possible for prevention to keep our kids and community safe. I think many, if not all of us, have the same goal: to keep our kids and community healthy and to decrease school quarantines and closures as much as possible, like many speakers just said. I'm especially worried about our vulnerable elementary population who are too young to be vaccinated. I so appreciate all the comments Dan and Wendy said at the beginning of this. I want to give my full support and thanks to all the protocols they are considering, and I want to offer my support. They are right. This is a difficult situation where we must make adjustments and be flexible, and they've definitely been doing that. First of all, I'd also like to talk about the importance of masks. We are so lucky that our school district has a mask mandate. Masks are our easiest and best tool to mitigate the spread of COVID. For our children who are too young to be vaccinated, masking and vaccination of the adults and teens around them are their only protection. Masking indoors and out, I agree, like the other doctor said. We should also do everything we can to reduce time and exposures when masks are off. For example, at lunch, when masks have to be off, we must spread the kids out more while eating with more social distancing. And other events when masks are off, like picture day coming up this week, should either be outside or canceled. It's an unnecessary risk for our unvaccinated elementary students. Secondly, I'd also like to discuss the importance of vaccines. Anyone old enough to get vaccinated and anyone around our unvaccinated elementary kids should do so. Yesterday, a message from the Children's Hospital Association and many of the nation's children's hospitals came out calling on leaders in the public and private sectors and the American public to stand with them to help protect our children by 1, all eligible populations should be vaccinated, 2, masks at school, and 3, social distancing and hand washing. To highlight the efficacy of vaccines right now, currently in California, and these are the facts, and across the county and across the country, more than 90% of the COVID hospitalizations right now, and more than 99% of the COVID deaths right now are people who have not been vaccinated. It is not a new thing for public schools to be requiring vaccines. This has been going on for decades. For example, polio, measles, mumps, varicella, etc., and it has worked. Yes, in general, kids and teens are less likely to get severe illness from COVID-19, but it is not that simple. Some do get sick and hospitalized, and an important concern right now is that we don't yet know the long-term effects of COVID for children. We are seeing them now in adults at work, like I'm sure a lot of the doctors speaking earlier have seen as well, such as permanent lung damage, fatigue, headaches, etc. But we don't know yet what the long-term effects are for kids. That's why we need to protect our kids from getting COVID, especially before vaccines are available for our young ones. So please, for these reasons and many others, let's be proactive and protect our kids and mask up and get vaccinated. And protecting our kids, we're also protecting our loved ones at home to which our kids can come home and spread it to. Since there are so many unknown variables with this disease, let's focus on what we can do to protect ourselves and our kids, such as masks and vaccines. These are the things we can do to keep our kids in school, a shared goal we all have. I'm so thankful to have such a caring and motivated school community, and we are definitely in this together. With respect, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I have Rhiannon Rimmer on the phone as well. Sorry, trying to modulate this microphone here. Rhiannon?
Joining right now.
Perfect.
Hello?
Hello.
Hi. I'm going to keep this short, hopefully. I would like to thank Wendy and the board for continuing to review these safety protocols as things evolve. I would also like to encourage the board to approve the items that have been requested for review and consider these 3 enhancements that would provide additional safety benefits to the protocols already in place. The first one, which I did have a brief discussion with Wendy about, is adopting types of allowable masks for students and staff per CDC guidance. This would be in regards to slide number 11. Both the CDC and LA County Health Department have clearly outlined what is recommended and what is not recommended. And I would like to see that be dispersed to staff and parents to be implemented for our kids. Number 2, I would like to consider extending the mask wearing to outdoors at the elementary locations, not just at dismissal, but when on campus in general. This would obviously be not inclusive of while eating, drinking, or on a mask break. And the last thing that I would love to see is the increased frequency of testing for everybody, mostly the vaccinated teachers on our campus, to be in line with the unvaccinated teachers, since both of them are able to get COVID and transmit COVID. And that's all I have for tonight. Thank you guys so much for all of that you do.
Thank you so much, Rhiannon. Thank you, everyone. Absolutely. I will put you on the list. The last person calling in is Patricia Wong. Patricia, if you're there, please go ahead.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Awesome. Okay. Hi, I go by Patty, and actually it's funny that Lorraine mentioned she's a PCY grad. I'm an LCE grad, an LCHS grad, and I have 3 kids within the district. First, I just want to say thank you so much to the board and to Superintendent Sinette for all the work you've done. I'm truly so grateful for all the thought you've put into this. My couple comments are, I love that we're looking for mandatory testing as a goal. Like Vidya, I also think testing teachers is crucial, whether they're vaxxed or unvaxxed, because of the amount that they speak in the class. As the last person said, there's not necessarily quality control of the masks. And sometimes teachers, when they talk, they just decide, maybe you can't hear me, and they pull it away from their face. So I think testing for all the teachers on a weekly basis would be really beneficial. And then kind of dovetailing with that is, I would love to see some sort of anonymous reporting that students maybe can do if they feel like their teacher is not wearing their mask, just to lessen the stress. Maybe an admin can just drop a little note and say, hey, if you cannot pull it off, that'd be great. Something like that. And maybe admins maybe teachers want that too. I'm not sure. I'm not in the classroom. I'm not sure how teachers feel about it or if they have challenging students. But if that's something that teachers want, I would also love to see that. I do know that there are teachers within the district that are stressed about COVID, mask wearing, students who are not good at it. And I'm hoping that maybe their voices could be heard in some capacity and brought into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I've had two additional members of the community and sorry about that. Two members in the audience that want to speak. Mr. Abraham, go ahead, and then I have Ms. Thus.
Thank you. Appreciate you getting me in. I wasn't prepared to speak about COVID stuff tonight, but it seemed appropriate. The monthly and weekly random testing. I have elementary kids, so I'm not. I don't care to. Middle school and high school is different, but for elementary students, I think it'd be an incredible waste of time, effort, money. Masks barely work even for adults. Based on recent data, it's 10% of the time. Mask mandates do not work. You look at any of the data from whether it's the state of California, state of New York versus state of Florida, the mandates have never worked. I am fully vaccinated, but we do not know the long-term effects of vaccinations. None of us do. Not one doctor does. And to say that all of our kids should be getting vaccinated, we have no idea of the long-term effects considering the data shows this is not serious, this does not affect them seriously. Yes, is there an occasion? Is there a random event where they could be, and usually it's because they have an underlying effect or because they're obese? That is possible, but it is so rare. 0.00005% of kids under the age of 18 in this country have died from this. It's 5 times as many children died from the swine flu. There's not one, masking outdoors is absolutely ludicrous. There's not one piece of data that has showed that masking outdoors has any spread whatsoever, whether it's kids, adults, from the beginning. It's been ridiculous since the beginning of COVID 18 months ago, let alone today as the Delta variant is waning. And as of weeks ago, 90% of the teachers were vaccinated based on something I read. It's probably more than that now. So when you consider that there's no data that supports our children spread this virus in school. There's not one piece of data out there that proves it. Considering that, and then you consider how protected we are with this vaccine at a 99.99% ratio, percentage, there should be no fear. I mean, the fear that one of our students or one of our teachers could get seriously ill or worse is next to zero. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Abraham. Ms. Thus?
I think
the last, I'm so sorry, Dan. Hold on. Ms. Thus is the last person to speak, and I know you were going to say so. I probably was going to say the same thing, but go ahead.
Okay, so we have one more virtual after her. Sorry, it was a mix-up.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Octavia.
Hi, just reading a text.
Oh, I'm sorry, Octavia. Forgive me. Dan, you wanted to make a comment.
Yeah, just in response, I saw a news item yesterday that a 4-year-old child died in Riverside. And I think that child had no underlying medical conditions, was not obese, had none of the risk factors, and God forbid that happens here.
Ms. Thus, thank you. Ms. Thus, go ahead.
This is a communication from teachers that I'm friends with. The teachers absolutely support Wendy and the board in their efforts to keep our students safe and healthy during the pandemic. The mitigation measures that the administration has put in place, including mandatory masks indoors, are key to keeping our students safe. We are so grateful to have such compassionate, thoughtful, and dedicated leaders guiding us through this challenging time. Teachers, La Cañada Unified.
Thank you. And Jamie, you said there was one more. Is it a call-in? Is it someone who's calling in?
Hi.
Yes, Eric.
Can you hear me?
Okay.
Hi, my name is Eric Kolchiski. I'm a parent of a PCR first grader. Thank you so much for the quick response on the car line issue and for providing testing for students and families of LCUSD. The testing of kids is very important to keep our schools open and preventing outbreaks. The case study of the Marin teacher who infected 22 students in May of 2021 shows there is a very non-zero chance that asymptomatic cases may be present in our schools, and we can reduce the chances of outbreaks and school closures to stay on top of this quarantine based on regular test data. Additionally, thank you for making this testing available to families. This will also help prevent campus exposures. If parents or siblings test positive, then families can quarantine and protect those in the classroom as a result. Lastly, there's a lot of value in continuing to communicate which room, school, and date positive COVID cases were detected. Many families are continuing activities like scouts, youth sports, and play dates, which can cross classrooms and in some cases schools. Providing them with this knowledge that their child may be exposed due to a positive case in another classroom will enable parents to proactively quarantine their family and protect the kids in their child's classroom. And this will enable schools to stay open and reduce community transmission within our schools. Thank you for your hard work, diligence, and commitment required to keep our kids safe and learning in the classroom.
Thank you. And Eric, I didn't get a last name.
Kulchiski.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Let's come back. That is the end of the public comments. Let's come back and take one item at a time. If I could have the slide up again and we can vote. And what we'll have to do is take each item that needs a vote, discuss it, and take a vote. So I will ask for a motion to open. I will ask for a second. I'll ask for any discussion, vote, and then we'll continue to move on. Thank you, everybody. The first item on our list, we can move the slide, is the board. There is number one on the list is board action is required, and this is the indicate daily updates on the COVID-19 dashboard. And the action that is requested is that the staff has the capacity to track daily the number of tests. The district has vaccination data for the students in 7-12 and can update percentages as more students are fully vaccinated. There's no recommendation to include on the dashboard the number of students whose families have opted them out of testing. Any clarity needed here, Wendy, or?
No, I mean, the community request or the suggestion was to do what we indicated. We would update the dashboard to include the daily number of tests sent to the Valencia branch lab, and then we would also update the dashboard to include by grade level 7 through 12 the percentage of students who are vaccinated.
Okay, but you are definitely no recommendation to include the number of students whose families have opted them out.
Correct.
Okay.
Question.
Let me go ahead and ask for a motion to discuss and to continue with a potential vote.
Make a motion.
Thank you, Caroline. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Dan. Joe and then Dan.
Just on the dashboard reporting. So it's aggregate information only, right, in terms of privacy protection, even on number bullet 1?
Yeah,
what moves across, no visibility to the actual raw disaggregated data, right?
There would be, no violation of privacy. Would just be the raw number of tests that were taken to the lab.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you're miking that up against those who are vaccinated. So both, the union of both is what I'm trying to make sure.
Pardon, go again.
It says LCUSD has vaccination data for students in 7-12 that can update percentages. So if it's only aggregate data, great. But even if that raw 7 to 12 vaccinated, not vaccinated is moving across, that's what I'll make sure that's not happening.
No, we would just be updating as we had more information that students were vaccinated. So it would be stagnant unless there was a change in the percentage.
Okay, Dan?
2 questions. The first, by no recommendation, does that mean you're not in favor of doing it, or you're looking for guidance from the board as to what our opinion is on it?
I'm happy to take board direction there. Currently, it was not a recommendation to include that data on the dashboard.
Is there a reason from staff that that's not useful information, or is it just that it's difficult to collect, or?
No, I mean, we had the opt-out form. That form we closed, actually it was supposed to close Friday. I left it open through this morning. We have the current data. And as our policies exist at this point, families have the opportunity to opt out. With the form closed, if you wanted to opt out, you would see your principal, and the principal would communicate that to the district.
Because it would be my hope that as community members hear more and more from the medical community, including their own pediatricians, that they may choose to opt in, since there isn't a lot of risk involved in a test. So I don't know. I personally would like to see that number because I'm hoping it'll go down.
That is something we can do. And just as a point of information, when I posted the slideshow on Friday, we had 172 students opt out. When I checked the data and closed the form this morning, it was down to 162. So over the weekend, we had 10 families or 10 parents of 10 students opt back in. We're seeing a lot of that trend, especially with our athletes. CIF has required that athletes to participate must test. And so families who may have for some reason been opposed to testing for another issue have opted in because their children want to play competitive sports.
It sounds like that might take care of itself. We might not need to vote on that issue at this point. We have the testing. Josh?
I'm with Dan. I feel like the more raw information that's out there that isn't violating anyone's privacy, the better off we are in terms of conversation. I just feel like, there's a lot of misinformation at the national level, at the international level, and I think that whatever we can do to sort of put it all out there at our level, the better off we're going to be, and people can do what they want with that data, but I just don't see any harm in making the dashboard as comprehensive as possible.
Any other comments or questions?
But will it change that much though? I mean, if the population is 100,
Caroline, can you speak into the microphone?
Sorry,
Thank
162 people?
162 students currently.
Have opted out currently? I mean,
I don't think it changes anything. I don't think it's changing. We're putting it out there to necessarily change behavior, but we are putting it out there so that people understand what's going on. And I don't think there's any harm in that, to say, this many people are vaccinated, this many people have chosen to opt out, this many people are, whatever, this many students are testing positive at this case. I just don't see the harm in it. I guess I understand if there's a toll in terms of the amount of work it takes, or if there's a toll in terms of privacy, that I get, and happy to sort of pull that back. But I just think if there isn't that toll, then I'm not sure.
I definitely want to make sure that privacy is not impacted in any way on all sides, both sides, those that choose to have the testing and the vaccination, and those that opt out. But is this something that we can come back and revisit again in a couple of weeks? Because I'm sure we'll be addressing this on a regular basis over the next few months. I don't think these protocols are going to go away.
No, you have a commitment that these are living documents, and all of this will be adjusted as we go. But I'd be fine if you made the recommendation that all 3 items on this list were added to the dashboard.
So what is your recommendation, Dan? You're saying that you would like to see?
I would like to see it. I think I agree with Josh. I don't see any downside to it other than the extra work that you guys already are putting in 24 hours a day. But it seems like it helps people to have the information, to know what's going on.
I suspect it's a relatively static number moving forward, but if you think there's value and privacy is protected, that somehow we're going to have more conversations, I don't have a problem with it being part of the dashboard.
Caroline?
But I don't think it's going to move much.
Thank you, Joe.
I agree. I don't have a problem with it.
And Josh?
Agree.
I definitely want to second Joe's comment in reference to privacy and ensuring that information is completely private and it's just raw data and moving forward. So having said that, Dan?
Before we do, there's one other request I'd like to make, and I would ask our doctors in the audience if this would be helpful information to know what the test positivity rate is. It would be, I think, useful for us to know as a district what our positivity rate is. And I don't know, Mark, is that something we get back from Valencia branch?
Our positivity rate is based on all of the data we've collected since we've been using them since February. So it's based on the almost 4,800 tests we've done over the course of this pandemic.
So it's not just isolated?
We would have to set up that formula and just figure it out ourselves. that doesn't come from the lab that way.
Because I see nodding from a couple of our doctors in the audience. So I think if there's a way we can move towards that, I obviously don't want to put too much work on your hands, but if it's something, I think it would help us know what the trends are in our own district.
Well, if I may
I think
recommend,
that would be a goal. I
Yeah.
think we're not there yet.
Right.
That would be quite
Well.
an exhaustive process, and we just don't have the capacity for that.
and I think we need to take the steps for the first two items, get that right, and then maybe look towards, as we address this issue, the next go around. If everyone's comfortable with that? Thank you for the comments and the suggestions. All in favor of item number 1,
Aye.
including the 2 bullet points? Unanimous, thank you so much. Okay, we got through item number 1. Item number 2, no board action is required. Are there any comments or questions? This is the protocol requiring vaccines for all staff. You want to just clarify this, Wendy? This is just a recommendation and
Sure. Currently, where we are in this process is we have required proof of vaccination for all staff. We are in the process of we're in the process of testing all unvaccinated staff twice weekly. And currently, we feel like the health and safety plan is adequate, but we're recognizing, challenges ahead, and this is an item that we can continue to revisit, but there's no board action required.
Thank you. Item number 4.
Just to comment on that one, if I could, please.
I don't know, Dan. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead, Dan.
I think that we've already made it clear our goal is to get everyone vaccinated. I think this one, just the explanation that I have to put out there as a lawyer is that this is the one we run into where employees have certain rights, meet and confer rights, contract rights, and I think this one gets complicated because of that. So I think it's laudable as a goal, and I think we should continue working on it, but certainly I think we have to recognize the challenges because they're employees.
Thank you, Dan. Much appreciate the clarification. Item number 4, this does require board action is requested, and this is to eliminate or limit large student indoor events. Wendy?
Did we skip 3?
Did I skip 3? I apologize. This is no board action required. They require vaccine for all students 12 years and older. Wendy, if you can clarify for us.
This was a suggestion that we had numerous community members put forward. Currently, what we have been able to accomplish is to request proof of vaccination for all students 7 through 12. For unvaccinated students or students who have not demonstrated their vaccination, we will begin testing at 7/12 after Labor Day. And the tests for unvaccinated students whose parents have not opted them out will be one time per week.
Okay.
And then that's our current protocol. I mean, I think this is, again, another one that we would revisit based on our long-term goals and our testing capacity. But yes, currently it would be, we have the data to know who our unvaccinated or non-reporting students are, and we have the capacity to be testing them one time per week, starting after Labor Day.
Okay, and just for, I'm sorry, Dan, just for clarification, we have the range between 76% and 82% in 10th grade, including, I think, 11th and 12th grade were 81 and 80%, something to that effect. Okay, thank you. Mr. Cardinal is nodding. Dan?
I just have to make a comment on this one also, that one of the challenges we face from a legal perspective is that at this point, vaccinations for 12 and up are only under an emergency use authorization. So I think it becomes much more challenging to require them. I think should the state change or should there be an approval for those, we might be in a different place. But I think because at this point, it's only emergency use authorization, it's very difficult legally to require it.
Thank you.
So just to promote it, we're fine with it, but we're stopping short of a mandate.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you. Item number 4 does require board action. This is the opportunity, this is the recommendation, the suggestion to eliminate or limit large student indoor events.
Thank you. The suggestion that we had was reviewed by staff. We feel that at the elementary, we can implement a protocol that has no elementary indoor student gatherings greater than the maximum class size for the grade level that is permitted. We have a little bit more interest and latitude that we desire to give to our secondary staff. Basically, we would allow large student indoor events Those would take place with administrative approval on a case-by-case basis. Essentially, the site administration would make a determination and then send it up to cabinet for approval. And the determining factor about indoor gatherings that are larger in scale would be that we would be able to ensure proper ventilation, strict enforced masking, and then a minimum of 3 feet of physical distancing. Largely, the tipping point here was with our youth sports protocol. There is a great deal of interest in indoor competitions being able to accommodate spectators, but we have guidelines in the protocol for those spectators, and those are indicated here. And as long as the high school administration felt that we could accommodate that effectively and safely, then they would make the request and district administration would approve it.
Thank you for the clarification. If I could have a motion to begin the discussion process for this item number 4.
So moved.
Dan, and a second?
Second.
Thank you, Joe. Questions? Dan?
Just a question for Mr. Cardinal. It seems like the high school is doing a pretty good job of moving a lot of what used to be assemblies to sort of a group Zoom. How is that working out? And is that what you kind of think is a good way to do it for those kinds of things?
I think we had positive reactions to our class-by-class assembly when we lost power in the teachers liked it. Kids said it was pretty good. Just from a safety perspective. Obviously, homecoming dance coming. We'd love to go inside if we can do it safely. We recognize that we can't, so we're going to have a fun outdoor event.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
I just have a question, especially as we're eliminating large indoor events. Do we have enough seating, outdoor seating at the high school to really accommodate? Because when I think of large indoor event, that's like lunch in the cafeteria. And I've heard some complaints that we really just can't accommodate the level of students we need to right now in an outdoor basis. And so I'm just wondering if we can get a little information about that.
Jim, can I have you go to a mic, please, just for our at-home listeners? Yeah, do you mind?
Here, Jim, you go here.
Good evening, everyone. Jim Cartnell, LCHS principal. It is true that we've closed the cafeteria for indoor dining and find that our students have kind of found new spaces to congregate. They seem to be settled in more or less. Is it adequate seating? I see what we've always seen at the high school, which is a lot of under the eaves, kind of, leaning against a building, sitting in provisional spaces, hanging out on a wall, standing next to a table, not necessarily seated at that table. So is it adequate? It seems to be people are settled in. We've worked with the cabinet to, begin thinking about how we can add additional seating outside, and that is, in works. We're hope to have add that on as the fall continues.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard reports from students that just felt like they were lacking in seating, and I understand it's going to be a process. So I hope that, that's something we can continue to.
I can also say that after being away for 18 months, there was a lot of remembering and competition for, I used to sit there. No, I used to sit there, and that compounds it.
And the different locations at the high school where each grade level took ownership. Okay, that hasn't changed. Okay, got it. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Any other comments or questions? So if I could ask we're good there, opportunity for us to take action. All in favor of item number 4?
Aye.
Okay, this is all of us in favor. Item number 4 is agreed to. Item number 5 is also being requested that we provide board action, and this would be no indoor car line dismissal routines. This is pretty short and to the point. Wendy, anything you'd like to add to this?
I think this is just indicative of our phased approach. We had requests for, universal outdoor masking. We recognize that students are taking nutrition and needing to lower their masks. We also recognize the challenges of, extensive supervision outdoors. And we see a lot of compliance already with outdoor masking. So the next step where students are in the dismissal process, there is a lot of tendency to congregate. There is no reason for students to be eating. And so it seems like a good phased approach to request the board to take action to approve that there will be no indoor car line dismissal routines.
Okay. If I could have a motion to approve this item?
Motion to discuss?
Sorry.
Josh, is a second? Is that what I heard?
Yeah.
Joe moved. Okay.
Second.
Josh seconded. Any questions or comments?
I would have a question for our elementary teachers and principals who are still in attendance. And are there any other places that you see kids congregating unmasked? It seems like this is a really critical one, the drop off and pickup. It sounds like that's kind of a problem area. Are there other areas that you would like to see masking policy? I don't know what they would be. I don't know where kids congregate or when they congregate, lining up to go to the library or something. Is there anything else you're aware of that we should be thinking about?
I'm seeing heads shaking. So everyone is doing cohort work and groupings. So it's really the dismissal and the arrival that we're looking at. And this is really for the dismissal routine, this board action item.
But this is just the indoor part of it, right?
Correct.
No, I jumped the gun a bit.
Right. So
we're going to be looking at.
There's
There's
two
two
dismissals.
pieces, yeah.
This is the indoor.
The no indoor car line dismissal routine.
Okay,
So
so-
we cannot gather indoors to wait in line to be dismissed.
We would be staging all dismissal and pickup routines out of doors.
Okay, does that mean that, hey, it's alphabetical? Everybody probably does it a little bit differently, site by site, alphabetical over here, or?
Just to be honest, Palmcrest has had the biggest challenges simply because their site is so impacted. But my hat's off to all three of our elementary principals. They have done yeoman's work in terms of adjusting, making accommodations, doing everything that's physically possible. And even though it takes longer, Principal Pack has moved things outdoors, and he is staging his dismissal from the outdoor space.
We began the whole year talking about the fact that we have to just give it a try and see how things we can address one day at a time, 1 week at a time. So thank you for the suggestions from the community, the feedback, the changes that are being made at the elementary schools. All right. Hearing no other questions or comments, all in favor of no indoor car line dismissal routines?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you so much. Number 5 is passed. Number 6 does not require board action, but does require that windows and doors suggested that windows and doors to remain open and that require air purifiers to be on at all times. Wendy?
So that was the suggestion. The edification that we wanted to provide was that our air conditioning systems often fail when the indoor temperatures are high and the classroom doors are open. So Mark has done a great job of just looking at the number of air exchanges with the air conditioners on and the doors closed. In the classrooms, air exchanges per the air conditioning system take place between 6 to 9 times per hour. On top of that, when the teachers have their air purifiers on, which I think is pretty universal. There may be an acceptance here, an exception here or there. And I think maybe the reason why a few of the air purifiers have been off is because of amplification, and Jamie has purchased amplification systems that we're distributing. And so if their air purifiers are making a little noise, if we get the teachers an amplification system, I can pretty much guarantee you that the purifiers will be on. But in addition to the 6 to 9 times per hour of an air exchange based on the AC, there's an additional 3 to 5 times per hour with the air purifier. So I know that we want the fresh air, we want the ventilation exchange, but if you're going to have your system taxed and it's going to become too hot to engage in meaningful instruction, we didn't want to ask the board to take action with the recommendation. Instead, we wanted to just provide information about how AC on, air purifiers working, and the door closed is still a reasonable rate of air exchange to keep the ventilation system working and make sure that students have access to a healthy air supply.
Thank you, Wendy. Any questions or clarifications needed? Dan?
A question on that one, and unfortunately, I think all of our students are gone now. I know Miss Lamb or Miss Mason were here earlier. I don't see any other students left, so maybe Mr. Cardinal, you can pretend you're a student. I wanted to ask them, in terms of having the doors open, it seems like it's a trade-off. You get the noise from the outside, but you might get a little better air. You don't have the noise of the air conditioner. And so it seems like such a trade-off for the kids, at least at the high school level. They might have an opinion as to which is better. Do you know what their opinion would be?
I think we really have a wide spectrum of opinions. There are those that just want to see the doors open because that is the safest thing in this time of COVID. But it gets tough when it's 80 plus degrees in the classroom, especially in periods 4, 5, and 6 when they come back from lunch. And so I think you'd see a mixed bag from our students.
Thank you. Again, this is a living document, and we'll continue to look at all of these points. Thank you.
And we'll continue to monitor.
Thank you. Item number 7 is board action is requested. This is the governing board is requested to adopt the elementary testing regimen as described. Wendy?
Thank you. So we've identified our ultimate goal, but in the interim, this is our next phased approach. This is what we would propose for the board to adopt as the current iteration of our testing regimen at the elementary sites. Optional testing is always available. Daily symptomatic testing will take place. Close contact testing will also take place. Unvaccinated staff will be tested twice per week. And then all students, we will create this week a testing calendar for implementation after Labor Day. And the current rate of frequency at the elementaries with this iteration is each grade level will be tested every other week for a total of twice monthly testing.
Okay, if I could have a motion.
So moved.
Dan? Second?
Second.
Okay. I'm going to take Caroline this time. Thank you, Joe. We've got Caroline as a second. Any comments or questions or clarifications needed? Dan, you haven't said a word.
I always have a question.
All right, thank you.
And on this one, I think it would be really helpful for our community to understand why it's not possible to test weekly at this point. And I know it's a logistical challenge. And I don't know if, Mark, you want to talk a little bit about the labs and the challenges and collecting. I mean, it's probably obvious that it's just a logistical challenge at this point, but I don't know if you want to say a few more things about that.
It's actually getting our staff ramped up and our kids trained as well. I think once the kids do it a few times, it'll go a lot faster, but I think it's going to take a little while, one, to teach them. We've requested 1,400 tests a week from the lab, and we'll up that as we increase our weekly testing. But I can tell when we started this in the spring, we got our results back the next morning from the lab, but because so many districts are testing across the state, and this is a state lab, they tend to be coming back about 48 hours now, so we will see more delayed responses, even though we are doing the testing.
Thank you, Mark. Any other questions or clarifications needed? Okay, all in favor of the recommendation, the governing board, we are requested to adopt the testing regimen at the elementary. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, unanimous. Moving on to item number 8.
Thank you. This is the counterpart to the elementary testing regimen. This is our current proposal for the high school testing regimen. And again, this is an iterative process, but this is what we would currently be focusing on until future board action. Optional testing always available, daily symptomatic testing happening, athletic testing per the youth sports protocols, and that is basically one time per week for the athletes, and then testing prior to a competition, and sometimes those could be interchangeable. We would also do close contact testing, weekly testing for unvaccinated students. We do have that capacity at the high school because we have roughly 80% vaccination rates. And then this next one is one to note. We would be deciding to, under close contact tracing, testing our vaccinated students who were close contacts between 1 and 3 days after they had been notified. I think it's important because it allows for us to be monitoring in a sort of a surveillance way the the breakthrough cases that might appear with our vaccinated students. And if we do that, then we would get their results at about day 5, which is the same point at which the unvaccinated students who needed to quarantine would be testing to return with negative tests asymptomatic on day 8. And if we had a vaccinated student surface as a positive, then we would begin a renewed cycle of contact tracing and testing for any close contacts of the positive vaccinated student. Otherwise, it's just giving us data and it's shoring up that gap between testing the unvaccinated students and the vaccinated students.
Thank you so much. If I could have a motion to begin the discussion. Thank you, Dan. A second?
Second.
Thank you. I'll take Joe this time. Thank you so much. Any questions?
I had a couple questions. The first is the testing with the youth sports protocol. That would be for unvaccinated students. Would that be then in lieu of their weekly testing?
Yes.
Okay.
We wouldn't be duplicating efforts.
Okay. And then my other question, I would like to know our version of close contacts as compared to maybe some other districts and how we are judging close contacts.
Good question. We are being more conservative here. Many districts have created seating charts, and they are requiring the students to, as best they can, remain in the seating charts. And then they are only contact tracing for the students who have adjacent seats to the positive case. We are doing much more than that at this point. We could look at changing it, but right now, and that's part of why my COVID compliance colleagues are so exhausted, is at the high school level, we're doing close contacts because kids move around so much, close contacts period by period of the entire class. So if a student is positive, you're basically looking at about at minimum 185 close contacts that we're tracing for every positive case.
Thank you, Joe.
So just to call out, we've heard concerns in the community or suggestions to test both vaccinated and unvaccinated in close contact. So this is an actual movement toward addressing that opportunity, right? And that's an important add in all of this that we're calling out, right?
Yes. And I think it's important because we know that there are breakthrough cases.
Yep.
We know that the vaccinated students, if they're asymptomatic, do not have to quarantine, but we are, in terms of just monitoring and surveying, we are going to be identifying if any of those close contact vaccinated students are positive through the day 1 to 3 testing.
It's not a perfect process, but it's a step toward covering both sides of the house. Yep.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Wendy.
Can I ask?
Hold on one second and go ahead, Josh. Hold on one second and I'll call you in just a moment. Yes, Josh.
I just wondered what that's going to look like for our vaccinated students in terms of will they decide or will the parents decide whether they're tested on day 1, day 2, day 3, or is that something that we'll decide for them?
The high school is working out sort of the testing protocols along with the COVID compliance team. Basically, when they were notified that they were a close contact, they would be told the requirement of testing but in days 1 to 3 and when the testing was available, and then we would just be tracking.
Okay, because I think that the impulse is going to be, for the conscientious students, is going to be to test right away on day 1, where the best results are going to be later in that testing period.
And it's again, it's not perfect. Initially we had talked about a rapid test on day 1 and then another test later. You get better. I mean, and I know I have experts here, so please correct me if I'm wrong, my team and our doctors. But because of the viral load and the incubation, it's probably better to test a little later after the contact tracing begins. But typically, if you go 2 days back, by the time we notify you, if you're testing maybe at day 2, you're going to have a 4-day incubation period. We'll probably, get some decent information. And again, not perfect, but at least we're just not letting all of those kids slip through the cracks.
Great.
Thank you. Yes, just a quick comment.
for a vaccinated student testing positive?
Yes, they would have to quarantine as well.
So that can get reworded?
Yes, good
We
point.
can add, thank you for that catch. Much appreciated. Dan, did you have a comment or a question?
I do. It's a question about quarantine for athletes who have had COVID. I understand, and again, fortunately we have some doctors here, that a student who has COVID may test positive for a couple of months. And if so, how does that mesh with our requirement that they test negative before they're allowed to play in a game? Do we have a way of verifying that they were positive and it's enough time has passed?
We have had, oh, I'm sorry.
Go, please.
We have had some students who tested and we didn't realize they had COVID within the last 90 days. When we checked with the Department of Public Health, they said if they can provide evidence of having a diagnosis of COVID previously, then the positive test would be overlooked and not considered. And so we're trying to communicate that, and the protocols actually say if you've had COVID within the last 90 days, you don't need to quarantine. You're almost like an unvaccinated person during that time. So we need to communicate that to families so that if they've had COVID, they know not to test because it's going to get, the results are not reliable, is what we've been told by DPH.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other questions or comments? If not, then I'll go ahead and call for a vote. All in favor of the recommendation, adoption of the recommendation? Thank you so much. Item number 8, we've moved on to item number 9.
Madam President, before we move on to item number 9, may I make a motion to extend our meeting beyond 10:30? Probably because I've been talking so much, we look like we could go past 10:30, and I apologize. Yeah. My apologies, but I think pursuant to our protocols, we need to extend the meeting.
Thank you. Well, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Josh says reluctantly. I'm teasing you, Josh. All right, let's move on. Thank you for the reminder, Dan. Number 9, the board action is requested. This is the requiring of outdoor masking for elementary dismissal. This is a community input again. Wendy, if you could clarify.
Thank you.
You kind of did in the other part, too.
Yeah, this is where I jumped ahead and sort of mixed up the prior recommendation, but we're asking that the board take action. This is another phased approach. We don't have universal outdoor masking required, but one of the times where students are congregating most is during dismissal, and we have adequate supervision, so we're requesting that the board require outdoor masking for elementary dismissal.
Thank you. If I could have a motion to approve the suggestion or the request?
Motion.
Caroline has made a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Whoa, this is like unanimous. Josh got it this time. Thank you. All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any questions, clarification needed? Joe?
Okay, so I'll just a statement. I know I was a little nervous, not nervous, I was against kind of overextending what the county was doing outdoors with the masking. We heard some comments from the public. And I'm still not in favor of going full masking outdoors, but I think this is a good compromise, right?
Sure.
I think this one here, where it's just a logical, small period of time, they still have a lot of flexibility throughout the rest of the day. I support this part of it. I'm still nervous about going beyond that for full outdoor masking.
Thank you, Joe. Dan?
And just a question, is there any consideration of requiring masking at arrival times? Is that still a problem with congregating?
No, it doesn't. I mean, it seems like most kids they're coming to campus masked because that's how they're entering the classroom. We can monitor that and see if there's, any reason at a future date to recommend that protocol. But currently it's the dismissal where we're seeing, kids leaving the classroom, congregating, running to the cars, getting, it's I think indicative right now of best practice.
And Wendy, maybe we can, at our next meeting, take a look and see just some feedback from the elementary schools as to how it's looking in the arrival period, and then make a recommendation at that point as well, if the principals don't mind.
I think the difference is when you're everyone does not congregate when they come to school. I've done Carline a lot, so I can actually talk to this.
Can you talk to the microphone?
Versus at the end of the school day, everyone gets out at the same time. So everyone's congregating. But in the morning, you're getting a kid out of a car and they go to their classroom. There's no congregating of a lot of kids. So I think that's
Well, they
the
might
difference.
walk in a small group when they see a
Okay.
buddy or a friend, but it's not mass
Correct.
congregate, yeah.
Right.
Or they're gathering in cohorts in the play area, the yard still, or not?
And Principal Hetzel shared that, at PCY, they are masked upon arrival.
Masked upon arrival,
All
all
three
of
of
them?
them.
Okay, thank you so much for the clarification.
Do
Appreciate
we
it.
want to just adopt that then so that it's in writing? If that's what the elementaries are currently requiring, maybe we should just make it clear that it's in writing that it's required to arrive at masks.
So the recommendation is to add arrival and dismissal? The assumption is that they already are doing it at arrival, you just want to put it in writing. I'm sorry, what is it, Carrie, if you can?
Yeah. I think
So-
behaviorally you're
Hold
there.
on one sec, I'm so sorry, Joe, hold on one second. So what I'm hearing is that you've already messaged this out to your parents that the masking be required when they are arriving. Joe?
No, I think you have the behavior you want. I'm just still nervous going beyond what we've talked about, what's been out here debated for the last.
I don't have an
Number 9.
issue, yeah, that's a good point. They're not going directly from the car to the classroom, they go directly from the car to the playground. And then they congregate in their lines, in their cohort groups. Okay, that's what I'm hearing. That's what I saw at LCE the first day. I don't think it has changed. I've seen it at the other elementary schools as well.
But when they get out of the car, you ask them, just in case they don't have their mask on, you ask them to put their mask on. So they're getting out of the car, walking down with their mask on.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, I just think we should have, if we're going to put it in writing, we should just follow the recommendation of the principals and what's actually going on, just so it's clear to everyone that that's the expected behavior.
Can I ask, speaking of expected behavior, so we're asking students now to be masked at dismissal, and they're coming through to parents who are choosing to be masked or unmasked. Is that, I mean, are we creating compliance issues that way, or?
Yeah, I don't think we want to, at this point, I wouldn't say that we have the capacity to enforce adult masking outdoors for drop-off and pickup.
Okay.
I think we can work with the students once they're with intake and with, exiting.
And so basically, once they're through the gates, then?
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Okay, so we have a suggestion here to add arrival. And Joe, I'm hearing a little hesitancy.
Yeah, I'm hesitant on going, I'd like to put that to consideration in the future, but.
How does everyone feel?
I would say that since our principals say that that's what's currently going on and that's their recommendation, I think it's just easier to
So I can't
adopt it.
so I can't be dropped off by my parent, by myself, walk to my classroom, and then right when I get to the classroom, put it on, or
Once you
by
come
myself?
onto campus, you should have your mask on.
Should, recommended, or mandate?
At this point, it's a mandate, is it not, to have the mask on? Is that what I'm understanding? We are mandating our students to have their masks when they are on campus. We are discussing right now whether we add the arrival time as well.
If the 3 principals, the elementary principals want this, no problem, I'll support.
It is already being asked of the
Head
students.
nod, Corey?
And-
Yeah, when the kids go to the playground, I like to close the system, but they're all lined up. They don't nicely, but they're still relatively close, and kids are kids, they're gonna go around and it's hard to put 6 classes in a cohort, the playground before school began. So just abundance of caution, they wear their masks. Obviously, we
Okay. So our principal from PCR is saying there's over 600 students on the playground at arrival, each in their cohort, but still in small groups. So we want to make sure that abundance of caution. I'm only repeating only because he was not at the microphone.
Through the gate, when they cross the gate, masks on.
When they get out of the car?
Caroline isn't at the car line saying you can't leave your car until you have a mask on. It's through the gate, right? That's basically, it's through the gate, mask on.
Out of the car is what I'm hearing.
And it might be a good idea to make it out of the car, because I could see there's probably kids who forget their mask. And if you tell them when they're getting out of the car, you need your mask, their parents might have it in the car. They might go back home for it.
So
Whatever.
how about if we say require outdoor masking at dismissal and arrival, and each site is managing the application? Is that comfortable? Okay, I'll ask that we vote on that. If I could make the recommendation that we require outdoor masking at dismissal and arrival, and then each site manage, and then please let us know, Wendy, at the next meeting, if we need to address this issue in any other way. Are we comfortable with taking a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you so much, everybody.
And is my observation at the high school drop-off every morning is that all the high school kids are coming to school masked. So Jim, do you need anything from us on that? Okay. Nodding his head no.
He's shaking his head no. Thank you so much. Item number 10 does not require any board action, but this is mandatory testing for all. The protocol suggestion is mandatory testing for all. Wendy, if you can clarify this point.
So we're not requesting board action. One of the recommendations from community members had been to require testing for all. With the testing regimens that the board just adopted, staff finds that those are comprehensive and represent an iterative increase from the initial protocol requirements. We will continue to assess this and to see if we can expand our capacity, but you'll see this item come back as we move forward.
Thank you so much. Item number 11, no action is also required, but this is the enforcement of mask mandates and enforce proper masking.
And I'm not requesting that this be require board approval. We have handled it administratively. Teachers know, first of all, Deborah Craddock and the COVID compliance team put out a very informative flyer to all staff and parents today that on what's appropriate mask wearing, types of masks, and we will just work on administrative enforcement. Teachers know that they have the support that if a student's not masking appropriately, they can issue reminders, and if there's any refusal towards compliance, then they can be sent to the office, and we'll work with them administratively at the office.
And I appreciate that. I just want to make sure that as students do go to the office, that it's more informative and learning versus punitive in any way.
Yeah, I mean, I do think it's important to note that because it is a policy, that if there was defiance, it could be handled in a disciplinary fashion.
And we don't want it to get to that point, but we're going to encourage.
I have to say, overwhelmingly, our kids have been overwhelmingly fabulous and very compliant and very respectful. And as you heard students attest today, it makes them feel safer.
Thank you. I appreciate it. All right. Questions? Number 12, no board action is required as well. And this was the suggestion to allow unvaccinated parents to volunteer in classrooms with a negative COVID test within 48 to 72 hours. So let's have a discussion on this one.
Thank you. So just to give a little background, this was discussed at length at our August 10th meeting. It was asked that we bring it back. I still see that there is, in the other direction, an iterative process that we can take. But however, with these new testing regimens and us ramping up all of our testing protocols and procedures, I really feel like right now we need to focus on students and staff. Eventually, when our systems are in place and we're a well-oiled machine, we could look to, providing support to parents for testing and allowing the testing results to have unvaccinated persons volunteering. The other thing is that we're still in the middle of a surge, and I think we just have to be cautious. We love all of our parent volunteers. Many teachers are not using any volunteers right now just to make sure that it's just the teacher and the staff and the students in the viral mix. So right now, our recommendation is to just stay put, and where volunteers are requested, the requirement currently is that they're vaccinated.
Comments or questions?
Well, I was probably the most vocal in this one last time. I know we have some passionate, engaged volunteers, and I do want to see a path where we could have a win-win here. And so I'd like to, could we do something where as soon as possible, they could produce a rapid PCR test? And yeah, they got to jump through some hoops, but it's not impossible to volunteer, right, if they take a couple extra steps. So I'd still like us to have be one of the first things we look at, maybe reinstating this capability, not a mandate to vaccine, but that if they do a rapid test within 24 hours, they can produce it either through us or on their own, and take that step so they could have the opportunity to volunteer.
Are you suggesting that we look at this now and make that recommendation now? Or
No, I'm okay right now. No board action. I know we're in the middle of some positive cases across the board. We're in a different place than we were 2 weeks ago. I was going to push harder if we were in a place where clean bill of health across the board. We are not. So because of that, I can see leaving this as is, but I suspect pretty quickly we may see the plateaus kick in and be in a good place. And I know there's some concerns about the 48 to 72 hours. Is that too far out? Where if you did a rapid test in 24, maybe there's a way to navigate. But I would want this to be one of the first things we soften.
I think that that's doable. Thank you, Joe. Any other comments or questions? Okay, thank you. Item number 13 does not require board action, but just some clarification.
Thank you. Shout out to our amazing 712 administration. Elementary, you're amazing too, but since we're dealing with item 13, we heard loud and clear that we needed lockers. Students demonstrated outstanding behavior and ability to physically distance and self-monitor. So we are in the process of assigning lockers at 712.
Yay, thank you so much.
I heard it was only 9 through, it's actually in the 7 and 8.
It's scheduled for them as well, but just hasn't, if you haven't heard about it, it may just be in the works.
Is it being implemented incrementally, grade by grade? No, all at once?
They were all emailed, locker and locker combinations. Our high school kids were developmentally more able and quickly to open and locate.
Wow, that's a really good way of saying it. Thank you. All right, much appreciated. These small steps. Thank you so much. Item number 14 does not, did I miss one? Okay.
No.
Just making sure. Item number 14 does not require board action, baseline testing.
Thank you. We're hearing from the experts the valuable data and the importance of baseline testing. It is something that we will continue to aspire to as a goal. Los Angeles County Department of Public Health recommends this practice to the extent a district is capable of administering the testing. With our new testing regimens and our capacity, again, we need to, acclimate to this, get our procedures and processes in place with fidelity, and we'll bring this back to you at a future date.
Thank you. Item number 15 as well, no board action is requested, and this is the weekly COVID testing for all unvaccinated students and staff.
So this is just a little bit of a repeat, but this was an item that was brought forward or recommended from community members that we tested weekly all unvaccinated students and staff. Per the slides already presented, our current testing regimen as adopted by the board will be twice per week for all unvaccinated staff, once per week for all unvaccinated 7 through 12 students, and once every other week for TK through 6 unvaccinated students.
Josh.
Could I ask, we're not doing any surveillance testing of vaccinated staff right now, are we?
No, we haven't gone down that road yet, but I think that that's something else we should look at as we move forward. It would be good just, even if it was a percentage of each school site population that we could recommend at maybe the next meeting.
Yeah, I think that would be something great to look into.
And I think, I think the labor associations would be interested in bargaining the effects of that.
Thank you.
We actually have several staff who test regularly voluntarily too.
Yeah, so there is some surveillance just with optional voluntary testing that is happening.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Item number 16 does not require board action, and this is the no opt-outs on COVID-19 testing for any student, teacher, or staff.
Okay, so again, this is something that we'll continue to look at. It has been our current policy to allow parents to opt their children out. We had the forum open for an entire week. Over the course of the week, and the forum closed actually a little later. As I mentioned before, it closed this morning. 162 students have been opted out, which is about 4.1% of the total student population. There are consequences for opting out of testing. If you are a close contact and you're refusing to test, you cannot shorten you cannot have a modified quarantine length. It would be the full 10 days and based on an asymptomatic diagnosis.
Thank you so much. Any questions? Dan.
Just a question as to how we're defining athletes. Are we including cheer, flag, band, choir, things like that that have similar exposures?
Yeah, anything that's involved in the youth sports protocols, which my understanding is that did include band, cheer, all athletics, CIF sports, and then it's somewhat even sparsed out or a little. You're looking at high contact, moderate contact, low contact, and they have different requirements for each range of athletic competition.
Thank you. Okay, we have reached the end of the protocol list, the suggestions. We continue to accept suggestions and comments from the community, as I'm sure we will see in emails, and we will continue to address this, as this is, like Wendy said, a live document. I appreciate your patience in going through this process. Thank you, everyone. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda. This is the approval of the summary of revenue and expenditures for 2020, 2021. This is unaudited. And Mark, I'm going to have you go ahead and give us a little information. And you're going to, we are just really asked to approve the summary for the district revenues.
Yes. And in my normal fashion, I've cleared the room again.
You cleared the room.
You know, while you're doing that, Mark,
That's
really,
because they trust you.
we should thank all those that stayed as long with us. I know most of them have left, but if they hear the recording,
Thank you.
especially our medical staff that, working long hours, it's appreciated. And our own staff, our principal is also working long hours. It's very much appreciated. They stayed to help with all the issues that we've been dealing with.
I'll swing by the Wellness Center tomorrow, so. Yeah, so just wanted to go over the unaudited actuals. We had the estimated actuals presented with the budget in June. And if I can go to the next slide, I think, thank you. You have the clicker, Jamie? And I have a few corrections on my math here. There we go. Just an overview of the revenues and the expenditures at the unaudited actuals. As we closed the books, we had a little less revenue than we had anticipated. I'll go into detail before, but this was largely just a receipt of funds that were anticipated from the state and federal dollars, but they didn't arrive until this fiscal year. On the expenditure side, we had a decrease in expenditures over what our estimated actuals were, and again, these are largely POs that don't get fully used and things like that. So we'll go into details on each of those. The next slide breaks down the revenues into our major categories. There we go, thank you. The LCFF, our major source of funds from the state, which is made up of property taxes, state aid, and the Education Protection Act. We actually had an increase in those funds. Part of that was an accrual from 1920 that got paid in this year. On the federal side, you'll see we had about a 10% reduction in what we estimated. And again, those were some of those CARES Act dollars and those emergency funds that were scheduled to come through but didn't post prior to June 30th. And the same's true for the other state funds. A lot of the learning loss mitigation or in-person instruction funds we were anticipating and expecting to get beforehand did not arrive. On the other local, the reduction in funds there came from just less facilities use, some loss on the leases front, some lower donations, Not a huge decrease there. So overall, our revenue netted a decrease of about $271,000.
Mark, hold on one second. Joe, did you have a
So
question?
just to be clear then, did I hear you right that like the federal one just didn't post and we're going to get
Right.
that in a future period? The favoritism will show up down the road.
Yeah, so they'll just end up showing up in this fiscal year versus last.
But that not state and local, just the federal line, right?
That's both the federal and the other state.
Okay, other state, great.
Because there was a great deal of funding from the state with all of the learning loss mitigation or the expanded learning opportunities and the in-person instruction grants. So on the expenditure side, the next slide, you'll see we had a reduction in expenditures in almost every category. Thank you. Small reductions on the salary side for both certificated and classified. Some of these just might have been, as we balance the books out, extra hourly that was budgeted and didn't get used, or sub salaries and all. Benefits had a significant reduction. We had savings on some of the pension, the health and welfare, and the unemployment insurance, so that ended up being a more significant number. Supplies were pretty close, but there were some things that just didn't get purchased before the year ended out, and that's more true of services. Oftentimes we'll have large POs for services provided for student needs or utilities that don't get fully used. So as we close the books, there was additional capacity left on those POs. So we had a $304,000 saving there. So an overall reduction of about $770,000. The areas that are in orange there that I shifted were corrections I made from the original budget. They were old numbers before that got carried forward. So on the overall change in the general fund balance, the next slide shows that we had, again, just kind of a one back, please. There we go. There's a synopsis of the revenue going down by 271, the expenditures going down by 770,000 for a net increase of almost $500,000 in our ending fund balance. So that then the next slide does show the ending fund balance. And a healthy amount there. A lot of that will be also restricted because a lot of those federal dollars and those state dollars are in those restricted accounts. So if you remember, the multi-year that I shared with you last time showed that this year we were very flush with a lot of extra money, but next year will be deficit spending, and that's again part of just the cash flow of the restricted funds coming through. Any questions?
Okay, so let me ask for a motion to, excuse me. Let me ask for a motion for the board to approve the summary.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you so much, Josh. This is for the district revenues and expenditures unaudited for 2020, 2021, and Caroline has seconded. Any questions at this point for Mark? Mark, thank you so much. And if I could call, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you so much. Moving on to the next item is the adoption of Resolution 22122. This is the Education Protection Account funds. And so we are being asked to adopt the resolutions as presented.
Yeah, the Education Protection Act were funds that are raised out of Prop 30 initially and then Prop 55. They are part of the LCFF pot of money in addition to the state aid and the property taxes. And we get a varying amount each year. And then each year we have to say what we're using them for and how they were used the previous year. We use them specifically for teacher salaries. So you'll see in the spreadsheet on the form that this year we are looking to get about 820,000. Last year we had 1.4 million. The number fluctuates, but it doesn't change our overall LCFF. It's just a distribution of what pot of money it comes from. And last year, I believe it was a little over 11 FTE that we ended up funding through the EPA. Here, part of the legislation is that we bring it to the board and share how those funds are being used.
Thank you, Mark. If I could have a motion to adopt the resolution 22122. Dan, thank you. As I hear a second. Joe is seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Passed unanimously. And item number 11G was one that we pulled from consent. This is the agreement for parking with the La Cañada Methodist Church, the lot and the dirt lot, as well as the parking. So Mark, if you can give us some information. I know, Josh, you had some questions or comments, so I'll have Mark explain and then you can Go on.
The credit for this goes to Jim Cartnell, so he's welcome to jump in as much as possible. But we knew the issue with the pool construction would be a problem, and the delivery of the modulars for PCR just increases it on those weekends in September, and that will happen again in November when the other wing of the building gets built. So Mr. Cartnell reached out to Karen Ellis, the pastor over at United Methodist Church across the street, and I know they've worked with students individually in the past to rent out space or buy a space for the year. We reached out with her, and they discussed it with their board and decided that they could accommodate 72 spaces in their parking lots. They have 2 paved lots. One is on the Berkshire side and one is on the Oak Grove side. And then we also would be able to access the dirt lot, which is right there by Berkshire off-ramp from the 210. We're going to go through and with our landscape crew and just kind of clean that up, take out all the weeds, and then probably paint in some stripings for when we need that. But we definitely will be able to use that on an as-needed basis. There was no additional charge for that, and the cost for the 72 spaces is $1,440 a month through June 30th.
Okay, thank you so much, Josh.
Yeah, I honestly don't have any questions. I just wanted to call this out and be able to take a moment to just say thank you. And this is the kind of stuff that makes our district great. You see a need, you see a solution, and you take action. And and sometimes I think it just kind of gets forgotten, or it gets put in a consent agenda and nobody says anything. So thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Jim,
Joe?
on behalf of everybody, thank you. Stellar work.
I think one other group related to this that should be thanked is the Devil's Gate crew that got that done early, which doesn't make this as complicated crossing over the street and intersection there with the trucks. So I think it
Right.
fits nicely that this is all happening at the same time.
Thank you for that reminder. I appreciate it. Thank you, Joe. Okay, moving forward, some positives. Dan?
Jim, do you have plans as to how kids that are driving the dirt lot are getting in and out of that lot? Is there, when I drove by there the other day, I was kind of looking at it, it's going to be a little tough to get in and out of there because it's so close to the freeway and the freeway traffic backs up.
Yeah, well, we're very much studying that, coming up with ideas about how we're going to bring students in, what the pedestrian pathways are going to be, and then what exit looks like with probably a kind of one direction out. You're not going to be making a left out of that lot to go home. So we're going to figure out how we're going to, get traffic to kind of loop back around up over, gosh, what is that, kind of going back up by the tennis club, ultimately, I suppose, to get back to the rest of La Cañada, because you can't bring them by school. So that's going to be something that we'll be studying. Our security folks are going over there and kind of, we wanted to have this conversation tonight, and then we'll start laying out what the plot of the lot looks like, share that with Wendy and the team, give you all a preview of it, and then start sharing it with our students as soon as we can.
Because I think it'll be challenging to get in for anyone who comes from the school, because making that left will be really hard with all that traffic. So it almost can only be kids coming in off of Berkshire. So they almost have to plan ahead of time to know to go that way.
I would agree with that too.
Thank you. But it is a step to addressing our parking issue.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it. Thank you. All right, so moving on to consent agenda, item number...
Did you vote on that? Was that already voted on?
Oh, yeah.
Are we including it back into the consent agenda, or?
I think we have to vote on it since we called it special.
No problem. If I could have a motion to...
So moved.
Thank you, Dan. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Josh. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that went. Thank you for the reminder. Moving on to consent agenda, if I could have a motion to approve consent agenda.
Motion to approve. Second.
Thank you so much, Joe and Caroline. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Unanimous. Consent agenda has been approved. And if I can go to number 13, communication. Caroline.
To say nothing. I want to go home. But I want to thank you guys.
Thank you.
Volunteer colleagues. It takes a lot of time to do what we do. We don't always agree,
No.
but we always sit and we work it out. So I appreciate you guys very much.
Caroline, thank you. Sorry. All right, Dan.
Just apologies for talking so much tonight. Used to be Kreitzer would kick me under the table when I talk too much, so.
But I'm trying to keep socially distant here, so I'm not going to kick you this time. Thank you, Dan. Josh.
Along the lines with thank yous, I just want to say, you know, the first week of school, towards the end of the week, we had our first close contact case, and you know, I started talking to people, and I know we had staff members up at 4:30 in the morning, continue to have staff members up at 4:30 in the morning to begin tracing contacts. I was on the phone with Jamie at 9:30 at night on a Friday because we were talking about how to work the health screening, and just everybody is just working tirelessly, and it is incredibly appreciated. So thank you.
Thank you. Joe?
Yeah, I just wanted to come back around and say, ladies, nice job tonight on your opening messages, President report, Superintendent report. I know it was important setting that up for the discussion, and thank you for all the community members who spoke up earlier today. I really tried to listen to everybody, and I tried to really give everybody my undivided attention, and I'm looking forward to participating, Wendy, in some of the listening sessions. I'm going to sign up. I want to follow through that commitment to be listening, and I look forward to engaging our oversight team here soon to bring them into the process.
Thank you. Wendy?
Just thank you to return on your mic. No, these are challenging times. I want to recognize everybody's position, everybody's efforts. I think if we can remain respectful and collaborative, we'll find great solutions. But it's just we have to dig deep and work together. So thank you.
Definitely an opportunity to learn from everyone. Jamie, Anai?
Just one apology to our at-home fans that we couldn't get the video working. I think we just had a lot we were juggling tonight with all of the tech and the in-person and the at-home and the slides, and it was just a Zoom glitch that we couldn't quite get worked out. We tried for the first 45 minutes of the meeting to get it working and finally had to resign that we weren't going to be able to resolve it. So just know that we tested all weekend and it worked, and then you go live and it doesn't work. So we'll get that fixed and have backup plans for next time. And next time it could be that we might just have to pause the meeting and restart so we get the video up and running. So apologies to all the at-home viewers, but we did turn on captions. So hopefully that helped people that they weren't able to see people speaking. Not that they would have seen their lips anyways, but that it might have helped with the viewing a little bit more.
I appreciate it, Jamie. Thank you. Honestly, yes, Dan, go ahead.
I received an email from our student board member.
Okay. It's time for us to go home. Yes, Dan.
We received an email from our student board member, Ashley Lamb, just what she wanted to communicate, and I think maybe I could just real quickly. She wanted to stay to comment on the discussions about the COVID protocols. As we mentioned, we were hoping to get student perspective. Mr. Cardinal, I think, echoed what she already said, but she had a couple things to say. She said, from discussions with students at LCHS, a few students said it was hard to keep a mask on all day, but they take them off during breaks and at lunch while eating. She said a majority of students support mandated mask wearing. She said that students value going back to school in person, so overall are okay with wearing masks. And finally, the main concern with having doors open during class is the noise disruption. For example, when landscaping is done or when the 7-8 students are eating lunch. So all very much in line with what Mr. Cardinal was saying. And thank you, Ashley, for emailing your comments on that.
Absolutely. Again, student feedback, extremely important. Anais, Mark.
I just wanted to say thank you to our newest COVID compliance team member. Katie Metz has jumped in and just gone gangbusters in helping us with the contact tracing. So she's been a great addition and has helped Deborah and Karen and I immensely, and Chris Henry and all too. So thank you to her, and just wanted to introduce her as our team member.
Thank you, Mark, for doing that. Any other comments? I just wanted to say our next board meeting is scheduled for September 28th. And Joe, you and I are scheduled on September 21st for agenda planning. And I think we've definitely heard from the community the items to discuss. All right, everyone? Thank you. I just want to make sure we've covered everything. And we do not need to reconvene closed session, and it is